What's that about?
I can't tell you, actually. I really don't know what it is. Excitement
Yes.
for what now? Are you saying when saying hello to each other or when saying hello to...
It happens when
To each
people who
other.
seem to know each other. First of all, the pitch goes up, and then the hands also go up, and
Things generally go up when you're happy, right? I
There's
think.
so many gestures.
Your voice, your hands.
men don't quite function the same.
Yeah.
Women are totally different
And then the women
species.
also don't do the same when they see men that they like.
Oh, but they do.
No,
In which part of the world?
no, they don't.
The pitch doesn't go up when you see
Pitch
a
going
gentleman
up
that
and
you
the
like.
hands going up and all, and no.
Huh.
And oh my God, no.
No.
What do they do?
None of those. Hello?
A very flat one. You know?
Well, clearly you guys have studied this much more than I have. So,
Let's take a look at the headlines after the weekend. Start with what you have. The Nation?
yes.
No, you have the Standard.
Right. Okay. Well, let's take a look at what is not taking center stage. When the state fails its own citizens, that's the front page of the Standard. From West Pokot to Nairobi and Mandera, hundreds of Kenyans have been killed in man-made tragedies since November. But senior public officers are busy politicking and talking BBI. This is on page 2 and 3, and I think this is in reference to the building that collapsed in Tasia. And it's interesting because as I watched that news clip over the weekend from Friday, we had yet another report that was, or rather another investigation, can I call it, of cities that had taken place, of cities of buildings within the city of Nairobi that were not fit. And there was a report that had come out. Unfortunately, this report had not been made public. And it would appear that this building that fell down, that collapsed in Tasia, was on that list. Remind you of another list that we saw in 2014 when certain schools had been earmarked as having not met the standards of quality. Same thing happened here. But nobody paid attention to it until we get to the point where people have lost their lives. And 35 people had been rescued from under the debris as the operation comes to an end. But it just seems to be the order of the day when it comes to mediocrity and you really not being able to get a
How to
handle
deal
on
with
things.
and this flood situation, yeah. So leaders are just talking about BBI. While at that same time, the Met Department is warning about increased rainfall.
Right.
Met Department has also talked about look out for, those dams.
Yeah, and the thing now is that we may look at it like, okay, the rains will stop. But like we spoke about last week, I think it's really important to shed light on the fact that now we have huge pools of water around the country. And the disaster that will come from disease alone is something that is unfathomable, because we have people walking through pools of water. We have pools of water sitting in people's homes. We have toilets, of course, we know, makeshift in many rural areas that have now been washed away with the water. And so you can imagine all of that is sitting in one big cesspool of disease, unfortunately. And that's what we have.
There's also that danger of the dams. So you can imagine all the 7 dams, the 7 fork dams, Kiambere and Gitaru and the rest. And then think about Sasumua Dam. Those dams are just about a meter to get to their full capacity. Just a meter below their full capacity. If those dams actually overflow, the people living downstream, and the kind of havoc.
That's the end of the story.
Quisha.
Those people should actually move now.
Yes, and this is what we're talking about. If we know this,
yesterday.
right? We know this and we know it now, right?
Yep.
Nothing is being done. Nobody's sounding the alarm. Unfortunately, nobody's saying anything in terms of what should happen to the people who are living downstream, like you said.
They're doing so. And you can see, for example, I saw a clip where the Murang'a governor had gone to see this dam. The dam in Murang'a. What's the name of that dam again, city? I forget it. Ndakaine.
Yes.
The Ndakaine Dam. So you had gone to visit the Ndakaine Dam.
That dam is very important for us here.
For Nairobi.
Nairobi,
Yep.
yes.
And so they were saying it's almost full, and when it gets full, the people downstream will be affected. So they were calling on the people to move. And this is what I was saying last week. Let's just declare this thing a state of emergency so that you can have people being moved and where they are being relocated to. Because if you tell them just move, where are you telling them to go to?
And the thing is even to those. A lot of the sentiments that came about that it's not that serious. Do you know what a state of emergency means? Well, we're dealing with something that has never been experienced before in Kenya. In Kenya, it has never been experienced. Other countries have seen it. This is a big deal. Absolutely. And it keeps coming.
Actually, this particular episode, this is an episode, is a prolonged event of rain, has never been experienced in this part of the world. All our neighbors who experience it is the first time. This amount.
Right.
But we had El Nino, and we do have what we call the long rains, which tend to be heavy. So it isn't as though we do not know what it means when it rains heavily. We have an idea. Now, when it rains a lot, the signs have been there now it's going to a month now.
Yes. And already, even 2 weeks ago, we were then told that, last week rather, we were told that it was going to go on till the end of the month. So we know now what's going to happen. But in terms of what we're doing about it, that's a totally different story.
The people of West Pokot are still complaining. They are still in those makeshift camps in primary schools. They're cold. It's still raining. The areas are getting flooded. All they're receiving is some food rations and some 1 or 2 blankets. What are we doing to help them further, And this is where the government comes in and starts saying, the situation is under control. It's been contained. It's not. This is just nonsense.
On that, I do agree.
The Nation headline.
Yes, carry on.
They have 3 headlines, actually, on the front page. So the first one is an exclusive interview with the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, who says, leave 2022 talk out of the BBI. He has spoken about, on a wide-ranging political issues, his relationship with President Kenyatta, Deputy President Ruto, his take on Mudavadi's book. On Mudavadi's, he says, I really don't want to discuss Mudavadi's book, mostly because he suffers from serious memory lapse from the claims he's making on the book.
Right.
Hey, but among the stories that seem to have been included in that book was how Mudavadi's sister was abducted by his father's enemies. Yes, I think some of these things it's worth reading and really understanding the whole story and the background, and also it's Mudavadi's perspective.
Yeah. It's his own.
The event may have been similar, but that's how he read it.
Exactly. He saw it differently.
On Ruto, I've never had any personal grudge against Ruto. He served under me when I was a premier, and we enjoyed a cordial working relationship. That cordial working relationship, remember, is one where the former premier attempted to fire.
Well, they cordially parted ways.
Cordial. Very cordial. Handshake and shared vision. The handshake isn't just about the love and friendship between President Kenyatta and I, but about our shared vision for the prosperity of this nation.
It is true. Remember, we did talk about this a while back, what politicians say and what they mean. Yes. And I think this is the problem that someone like President Trump of the U.S. seems to have. He seems to say what he means, or at least he appears so. And even if he didn't mean it and he was saying it for effect, I'm not sure it's having the effect he intended it to have. Yes.
Probably not. Most probably.
Because it's giving him an image of something that is not really pleasant. I was going to say palatable, but clearly the people whose palate he needs to please the people who vote for him, and they seem quite happy.
They seem quite, absolutely, yeah.
Yes. So that's where it counts. If his counterparts in Europe don't seem to think so, they don't vote for him, do they?
Exactly.
Actually, that's putting it well. Now, there is an issue in the Star, I'm sure it's in the other papers as well, about the debts. The Treasury has said that the amount of money that is owed but is still being contested by them comes to 37 billion. And the people who owe are the Presidency, Parliament, IBC, and National Police Service, among others.
Who owes what?
Debt that is owed to suppliers, to vendors.
Oh, what the government owes people.
It's not just the government, it's all these bodies. Well, the national government came to the fore, but what Treasury is saying that none of them will be paid without supporting documents. It means some payments were made and there's an absence of supporting documents.
So 37 billion.
Billion.
The higher likelihood is that all these people have supporting documents. Of course, if you're contesting at this point, when you have withheld their cash for more than 2 years, this is just the government trying to delay.
That is the executive playing politics.
This is the executive actually just trying to delay.
Something,
The president issued
yes,
an order, pay these people within 60 days or something.
30 of those days have gone.
Yeah.
You know, you know how it is when you're going through some old papers and something strikes you as being odd. This happened the Wednesday, the 4th of December, and an interesting article appeared in one of the papers, not the Standard, and says Kenya risks losing U.S. Embassy office. Apparently, we have not been paying rent.
Oh, good heavens.
Where?
No,
In Washington?
UK. Now, the story is a little more complex than that. It appears there are embassies that Kenya, that building that houses the Kenya embassy in many countries, but the country, we actually own those buildings.
Yes.
Now, there are others we own, but we don't have papers for them. And then there are others we rent, and it appears we are not very good at paying rent.
So this is where? This is the UK or the US?
UK. The UK is one where we have actually been given notice.
Come and be going.
In the UK.
UK. So it raises many questions. First of all, I asked, is this article really genuine? Is it really
Is it
true?
true?
Then I read a little further and I realized it isn't being made up.
What?
No, I don't think we are unable to pay. My opinion.
That's what I was going to say. I don't think it's a money issue.
No, I think something somewhere must have gone wrong. Someone didn't do due diligence. There's something someone was supposed to do and they didn't. I mean, you know how long we've had this embassy?
This must be like forever.
Since independence.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not as though we moved. Yes.
We've been here forever.
We've been there from time immemorial.
Surely.
So the question which was being asked even by the writer was, so what was the arrangement originally?
In the first place,
Yes.
yeah.
And has the building changed owners? Because if it changes owners and we didn't get the papers right, then of course the person will believe that they owed rent. But if we bought it and there are no papers, so again, it raises many questions. Yes. But it brings me to this point. Some of the financial issues that we speak of, we've constantly said that perhaps it is people who are not doing their job, meaning they're doing the complete opposite of what they're supposed
to be
Okay.
doing.
But sometimes I read the papers and I look at these reports, I get the impression that it's just neglect sometimes. It's not that the money wasn't there. It's not that they couldn't be paid. Somebody somewhere just figured they have other. It's like
The other priorities.
They're a competing interest.
Yeah.
It's like they're visiting that particular office and that particular ministry. Yes, and while they're visiting, they may attend to a few things,
These are
and
jokers.
then they proceed to go and do what it is that they really do.
Really do.
Yes.
Total jokers.
It's very unfortunate.
Yeah.
Speaking about offices, and I know this is going to be quite the discussion today, but governors disown Sonko. County bosses break tradition of defending one of their own with terse statement pointing to the crisis in Nairobi. According to the chairman of the Council of Governors, Wycliffe Oparanya, we are aware of the uniqueness of the county government and therefore shall reach out to His Excellency the President to convene an emergency summit to address the evolving situation. So county bosses are quite concerned about what's going on following the arrest of Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko. And they basically say that they're going to talk to the president to see what can be done. It beleaguered Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko. His woes escalated yesterday after the Council of Governors appeared to abandon him. The body that brings together all 47 county bosses failed to openly defend Sonko over corruption allegations, facing him as it has done in the past, with other governors facing similar charges. Instead, the council, chaired by the Kakamega governor, called for an emergency meeting with Uhuru Kenyatta to discuss the fate of Nairobi, and has been thrown into a leadership crisis following Sonko's arrest in Voi last Friday. So they want to know what to do with the county as opposed to
how does that translate into disowning him?
Because, I mean, according to what they said previously, when you had other governors whose names were called, you would find that there was some of support that was accorded to them. From the statements that they made in terms of we're going to band together with our brother or sister, as it were. But in this case, they're asking, okay, so now what happens to the county? And we want to know, not the individual, the county.
Two questions come to mind. One, what is it that Sonko did to his fellow brothers and sisters?
That they're not liking him anymore.
And number two, how many governors are there who don't share Sonko's predicament?
I think we'd be hard pressed to find the few that don't.
That's why I asked how many don't. Because if you ask me, every other government in this country has problems that are similar. The only problem is Nairobi happens to be the capital of the country. That, my friend, is a problem. And this city has its owners.
The city has its owners, and the county bosses are worried that you can't have a county with the profile of Nairobi going to the dogs.
Just like that.
But think about it.
As the hyenas watch.
Yes,
Right.
but even as I asked this question, why arrest him on Friday? They could have arrested him on Wednesday.
Oh, I want him to sit and stew for a couple
Wednesday
of days.
last week?
Even Tuesday.
Or Tuesday last week? Well, Tuesday and Friday, it's just 2 days of the week.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
It's kamata.
We have noticed over time that when people are high-profile people tend to get arrested on Friday.
On Friday.
Yes, around midday.
Works well.
Yes.
It's 19 minutes past 6 o'clock. This is the situation. We're taking a look at what's in the headlines. Good morning.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
No, it's... So some people actually were making noise because they thought that the DP was going to get a lukewarm reception. So there was some, tanga fracas. People who were burning, what are they burning? Burning T-shirts. Because they thought that the Nyeri Town MP was going to be opposed to this. Nyeri Town MP actually also appeared in the same function where the DP was. Yeah.
Again, this was a weekend where I was doing a lot of pondering. What is it that the DP does or is doing that other politicians don't do or want to do? What is it?
Going against the grain, I guess, in terms of everything that the president has opened his mouth to say that he would like people to stop. It seems that the DP has a roundabout way of doing it anyway.
This is really the question I'm asking. Is this really true or is it choreographed?
What?
This seeming disagreement, because there's ambiguity to it. When Mariga appeared at State House, there are those who said it was a photo op. He wasn't really supported. So, okay, we'll go with that. Then now we have the BBI. Well, the DP is not really opposing it. Okay. And his people met in Naivasha and came and said, we actually support this thing, generally speaking. And then we pause a little bit and we say, okay, the DP himself comes and says, there are these rumors that people say I owe. I actually don't owe. The ambiguity around this issue is profound. But what it leads me to is to ask the eternal question that perhaps is never asked. What if the DP and the president have no real disagreement? Yes, that's really what I'm asking.
It's not something that would be far away from the possible,
Yes.
Heads, I think eyes would be wide in wonder or in amazement if it ever came out, but that will only just be a short while, because coming off the backdrop of what you said previously, that sometimes they say one thing but mean something totally different, or try to use it to kind of throw people off to think that this would be the case, where actually the opposite is the reality.
Mudavadi's book, for the excerpts, inform us that he feels he was played, that he was conned by the president and the deputy, that over the leadership role that they wanted him to play. Now, when you read such a thing, at least when I read such a thing, I ask, so if that was the case, what makes you think it can't happen again?
So he says he was played.
He says he was played, according to the excerpts that I've read.
Things didn't unfold the manner in which they were before his eyes.
He was promised one thing. People even agreed on one thing.
And they even made a public statement.
Yes, and then there was a complete about turn. So he was left holding the short end of the stick. No, in this case, he was actually left holding the shorter stick.
Or no stick at all.
Yes, as he later discovered that the real con lay in the fact that he was made to believe there was a stick.
Right.
And then He was told it's a short stick.
Yeah.
Then he realized actually there was no stick.
There was no
at all.
Empty hands with eyes wide.
By the
in
way, I need to
wonder.
make a correction. It wasn't Mudavadi's sister who was abducted. It's his father's sister.
Oh, right, his aunt.
His aunt, and they even chopped off both her legs. And she later dies as a result of it. Those were his father's political enemies.
Wow.
Yes. So, politics in this country can be ugly. Not very long ago, the same function you speak of, I think it's been in the news. There was a bit of mayhem, isn't it? Yes. So some people got soundly beaten. But that's not really the issue. In Kenya, when people don't die or are injured but are just beaten and you can see whips, people find it completely amusing.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. For some reason, it's something you want to watch and see what the outcome is going
They
to
will
be.
even repeat and say, alipigwa. It seems
You laugh at that.
No,
Yeah.
laugh. They laugh heartily.
Yeah.
Why is that so?
I don't know. There's something, it's crazy, but there's some kind of satisfaction that the human mind gets from seeing somebody else in some kind of turmoil. Right?
Especially when it's political.
It's
So it
hard.
just-
It's hard to admit, but that's just the truth.
Yep.
Yeah. President Kenyatta is going to host 10 heads of state in a conference this week, actually starting today and tomorrow. At least 10 heads of state and government will this morning begin a 2-day conference of the 9th African, Caribbean and Pacific. Among those expected to attend are heads of state of the 79 ACP, the non-ACP heads of state, government ministers from the member states, European Union, United Nations, international organizations, private sector, corporate executives, and philanthropists. And what they're looking at is a transformed ACP, committed to multilateralism at the Kenyatta International Convention Center. And he'll take charge of the leadership of the ACP. Thus, the host country takes over the presidency for the next 3 years. So Kenya becomes the leader of
Of
ACP
the Africa,
countries,
Caribbean, and the
Pacific
Pacific.
countries, yeah. Yet another regional, supra-regional body. Let's see.
So we're in charge.
Yes, for
we're
3
in
years.
charge.
Oh, excellent.
And what you do now is that you look forward to exploring how you can advance the commitment to multilateralism by the ACP heads of state and governments to achieve the UN 2030 agenda and so meet current and future needs of citizens across Africa, the Caribbean, and the Pacific regions.
Well, in Kenya, that shouldn't be difficult. We'll form a commission, and then we'll task it
Yes.
To investigate,
and to help with the investigation, we also ask them to form a task force.
Yeah, and then you might also call in the task force that was called upon at the Cotonou Agreement in the year 2000, and let's see what then happens.
We will produce papers on this particular matter, and they'll be wonderful papers. If they ask us, this is something we can do.
If they ask you to this one, you've got it in the bag.
Kenya, that.
You
and
know a
we've got
guy.
it. And we'll give them a roadmap
Done deal.
to for prosperity. We'll give them, we'll even, something, just as I will throw in a little extra, how to rig elections.
We'll do it nicely.
Yes, made in Kenya.
Father Lord.
There's a conference happening in Kigali, Rwanda.
Yes.
Yesterday they had a conversation about a good future for African youth that was dominating the talks yesterday. So this conference is looking at what Africa should look like in the next 60 years. It's called the Kusi Ideas Festival, organized by the Aga Khan
Foundation
Development
plus,
Network, plus the Nation Media Group. So it's happening there. And the conversation yesterday was happening about the youth. African governments have been challenged to provide opportunities for inclusive development, especially among its young people. The former president of the African Development Bank, Dr. Donald Kaberuka, said inclusiveness is all about equal access to opportunities, which the continent's leaders should champion. Well, good talk.
Good talk. I love it. Yes.
Good talk. It's good beginning of the talk. Talks about, reaping the youth dividend by Africa. It's going to have the youngest population. Already has the youngest population. So what are you going to do about that? That's what the conversation is going to be all about. And he'll be discussing about our opportunities, right?
If you noticed, there is a very steady but very clear flow of conferences, international and otherwise, towards
Kigali.
Yes, it appears they provide something that we used to and we clearly no longer do.
Right.
Now, us guys are not doing this regional things. We are doing ACP. All right.
ACP is what?
We are doing global conferences, African, Caribbean, Pacific.
You're
We are
not
doing
dealing
blue
with East
economy,
Africa.
that brings in everybody from across the world. What is this East African thing? We've done that so many times. We have graduated. Leave it to the small brother called Rwanda to host some of those ones. In fact, even the devolution conference, we can take it to Rwanda.
Ah, okay.
Eric,
Next, we are doing the UN thing. We are going to be the UN Security Council member.
we are. Is it a done thing?
Almost.
Okay. Almost in this country sometimes means never.
It's okay.
But
do
let's
and join
wait.
UN,
But of course-
UN with a muzzle on your mouth.
But the sort of
Well
membership we have seems to me more like an observer status.
That's what I said. Muzzle on your mouth. There's nothing you're going to say that's
We
going
can't-
to sway
we
any
can't
kind
even
of
vote.
forget it.
No,
You
speak. You can speak.
You can speak, but you will not sway any kind of opinion. You will not be involved in making decisions. Sorry.
But this Security
You'll-
Council is a nice place because there are 5 people who can. All of you can talk to them.
But
One
only five-
of them.
One of the
says,
5 says,
I don't agree.
I don't agree.
I don't
End of
think
Finish.
story.
I don't
you
think so.
You talk for years. If you like, talk for years. All the saliva will finish. Bring more. If they're not listening to you, they're not listening to you.
Well, it's good for prestige.
Yeah.
Actually, it is prestige, yes, but for our CV, it's also very good. It's also good. It means that we are the sort of likable, dependable, we're the sort of place one wouldn't mind coming to. But it's good advertising for the West.
Yeah. Let's not forget that Nigerian world heavyweight champion claimed back his title on Saturday night, Sunday morning. Anthony Joshua is now once again the heavyweight champion,
Heavyweight champion
of the world.
which sport?
Boxing. Come
Boxing.
on, CT.
Boxing.
Boxing.
He had it before.
He had it before. Then somebody called Ruiz came and took it from him. So
The
Saturday
big
night,
guy.
yes, and he
What
came-
happened?
He became a little bit bigger,
He was
and so
beaten.
Saturday night he was beaten.
The guy's Nigerian.
Oh yes, he
Well
is.
done to him.
Anthony
There you
Joshua.
go. Anthony Joshua is Nigerian.
Okay,
Olusegun is even
champion of the world.
that's
of the
right,
world.
heavyweight.
Heavyweight
we have
champion
to
of-
add
The
everything.
one for Mike
you know how you
Tyson.
add CMB, CBC, HR,
The one for Mike
all of those
Tyson.
things.
Is it the same one for Mike Tyson?
It's that one.
The one for
No,
Muhammad Ali.
no. Hold it.
Yes,
hold
that
it.
one.
Hold it. No.
So Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson.
Guys, there's
Ola-
more. There's more than one belt.
He has 4 right now.
Yes.
But you're talking about the big one. Is it
No,
WBC or
they all-
WB? W what?
WBC actually.
WBC.
World
World
Boxing.
Boxing Championship.
Yes, but the others.
He's the heavyweight champion, and then of course in a certain category. But then now we're looking across the world in terms of title.
He has 4.
There you go. He's the overall.
So he has fought in different weights and has belts for all those.
But now of the heavyweights are the biggest boys, literally, and according to the
Which
the
means
belts.
which means they get more money.
He's the biggest, baddest of them all.
Are we going to hear the end of this?
No,
Okay.
sorry.
Is he going to have a lot of money like the other guy?
What's his name? The guy who retired and then came back.
Yeah, the
we
guy
don't
who
even know who that
flaunts
is
his cash.
anymore. Mayweather.
Mayweather.
By the way, if maybe we should look at this one of these days. It's sportsmen who've made money and the number who've actually managed to keep it.
Keep it, right? That's true.
Yes.
And there's some. There are a few.
Those are make and keep.
Yes.
29 minutes to 7 o'clock. Let's take a look at what's in the headline. What's in the
It's called traffic. It's called traffic.
Traffic.
Right. The heavens have opened and the rain is coming down this morning. It is a Monday morning. People scrambling, trying to get to work. Getting into the CBD is going to be a nightmare. It's heavy rains on Mombasa Road and traffic is already piling up at about 10 minutes ago. So everybody's already asked to be extremely careful. Kasarani Mwiki, the residents of that particular area and those who ply the route have decided that this is the morning where they're going to burn tires because of the poor state of the roads. So nobody's getting in or getting out right now. Coming off of Thika Road as well, this is going to affect the traffic inbound and outbound. The Eastern Bypass, which was obviously used as an alternate route, is not moving this morning. As you come to the CBD, roads around the High Court are closed, around City Hall Way are closed for some reason, and it's all about the Sonko arrest and the court case that will be heard this morning, but some youth have decided that they are going to try to get into the city. Utawala bypass all the way to the 75 barracks is crazy traffic this morning. Let's take a look in a short while around the rest of the city and see what's going on. But for now, we ask you to be careful. The heavens have opened. Take it easy as you go. Put on your fog light so that you can see where you're going.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation. This is the Situation Room. It's on Spice FM, broadcasting from Nairobi on 94.4. We're in Mombasa in 87.9, on 2.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, and Malindi 97.7. We live stream every morning on this show, www.spicefm.co.ke, on Facebook, Spice FM KE, and also on YouTube, www.spicefm.co.ke is the website, rather. YouTube, our channel is Spice FM KE. Join the conversation on Twitter. Tag us at SpiceFMKE, and the hashtag is The Situation Room. So today, this morning, the governor of Nairobi, Mike Sonko, is expected to be arraigned in court after his dramatic arrest in Voi on Friday. So first of all, that arrest was quite dramatic, right? The governor of Nairobi arrested in Voi, heading to Mombasa. Governor of Nairobi airlifted to Nairobi to face charges. And then, of course, there is some scuffle in the arrest process. The police have said that because of what happened there, they are also likely to confer some charges against him. And this is resisting arrest and obstructing justice. So, besides the DPP, the police are also threatening to take action against the governor. Now, of course, we know that what the DPP said is he's going to face charges among many charges among other city hall officials. These include officials in procurement and some companies that have been cited as having obtained some cash and fraudulently. Charges will go even into money laundering. We'll see what happens in court. Now, the focus, of course, turns into what happens to Nairobi City County government. We have discussed this a number of times before. In fact, even when he was going to EACC to answer questions, we asked ourselves, so what happens if the governor is actually arrested and taken to court and charged over anything at all, especially that involves his office? Going by the Justice Mombingogi ruling, where a governor could be barred from accessing office. If he's barred from accessing office, that means that the deputy takes charge, like we've seen in the case of Samburu and Kiambu. In Nairobi, we don't have a deputy. So who takes over? Of course, the constitution sees that in the absence of governor and deputy governor, then the speaker of the county assembly can take charge and run the affairs. But the speaker can only take charge for 60 days, within which an election must be held to pick a new governor. Now, the Senate, of course, has weighed in on this matter, a matter that had been canvassed by the Narok Senator Ledama Olekina, who had said, moved a motion in the Senate saying, we need to compel the government to actually recognize a deputy governor who's acting as governor, and the Treasury, for example, needs to recognize that that deputy governor is serving as acting as governor, and we should accord them the rightful respect. Of course, the deputy Speaker of the Senate, Professor Kithure Kindiki, a legal mind, weighed in on that matter and said, first of all, we cannot really compel the government to do anything. We can only advise as the Senate because of separation of powers. But in that whole mix, he says, I disagree with what Justice Mombi was saying. I don't agree that when a governor is taken to court, then it's assumed that the governor is absent from office. I don't agree that deputy governor should act. In fact, I think that if he's absent from the physical place, location of an office because of tampering with evidence and all, he can operate from anywhere else within the county and still continue serving as governor. That's what Professor Kithure Kindiki was saying, basically. Brings up the question, which way for Nairobi County? And I think just going by the casual reading of just the law and the constitution, this morning I just want to say, let's basically dissolve the Nairobi County government. Let everybody go back to the election, MCAs plus the governor plus the absent deputy, and let's see Nairobi voters elect a new government.
Well, asking the questions appear as a layman, which is what I am in these matters, but what were the grounds for having a new election? I mean, you've argued, but what really is it? Is there anything that warrants? Because if the justice mentioned one thing, I also sought the opinion of people who understand these legal matters. And this is what a friend told me. He said, remember that whenever a ruling is made, it is made for a specific case with specific issues. Mm-hmm. So but there's this term that us laymen keep hearing, precedence. He said that may be so, but somebody may be out of office for a different reason. So that particular ruling may not necessarily apply. Mm-hmm. So in addition to the good professor's perspective, this is yet a different perspective that I got from another legal mind. Mm-hmm. So I asked the question, so what happens? He said, what happens is you then have, I think he told me, is it 60 days, 2 months? Or is it 3? 2. True. Within which, right now, like in the county of Nairobi, the speaker then is in the position of governor, is in an acting capacity. So I asked further, acting, what can you do and what can't you do?
Yes.
And then I was, of course, treated to a long array of things that you can't. For instance, standing out, the deputy cannot sack anyone. Just so that you understand.
Cannot appoint even.
You can't. So essentially, it is genuine acting. Yeah. You actually sit.
Just there for the show.
You are there to ensure that things run smoothly. Mm-hmm. And I said, yes, but the running smoothly of a county is not in the hands of the politicians. Mm-mm. It is in the hands of the executive, the administration. And they seem to be in place. Then I was reminded again, some were sent on leave. I said, yes, but they have the equivalent of what you call the permanent secretaries, right, who are in place, and we all know that they're the ones who actually run the show. Mm-hmm. See? So why I'm raising this is the narrative seems to be that there's a vacuum, and I'm asking, where is the vacuum exactly?
The vacuum exists in this way. The head of the executive is the governor.
Yes.
In the absence of the head of the executive,
yes,
the deputy is the acting.
Yes.
Right? Now, you don't have a head.
In the absence of the deputy, we still have
a speaker
third option
for
60
option,
days.
Right.
Yes.
Just for 60 days.
And that 60 days is very clear, within which there must be an election.
Right. Assuming that within these 60 days, that charges that have been left in this particular case, where we have the Nairobi governor, having been accused of, certain things. We do not know what is going to happen after today. We do not know the charges levied against him, whether we're not going to go to trial, whether it's going to go into a court case. Now, assuming that within those 60 days, whatever is happening in the courts has not been settled, there have been no convictions, anything has happened. Now, if those do take place, then within 60 days, Nairobi must go to an election. And elect a new governor, of course, a new governor and his
election
or her
for
deputy.
the governor, or is it for the entire?
For the governor.
For the governor.
In this case. So, for example, if a vacancy occurs in the office of county governor and that of deputy county governor, or if the deputy county governor is unable to act, the Speaker of the County Assembly shall act as a county governor.
Only for 60
If a vacancy occurs in the circumstances that we've just contemplated, an election to the office of county governor shall be held within 60 days after the Speaker assumes the office of county governor. Which means, basically, that as soon as the Speaker takes office, the vacancy is declared.
Right. The question, though, would be, and it would be interesting to know in
and
this
an election
case,
is called.
At what point does the Speaker take over? Because here we are seeing that today, for example, then we see court, the mention is going to be done this morning.
Yes.
At what point would the Speaker then take over? Does it then all depend on what will be said or decided within court? Whether or not the governor will be granted, bail, whether or not things will happen speedily thereafter? if there's going to be an appointment in acting capacity of the Speaker of the National Assembly, then of the County Assembly, then what happens, and how soon would she, in this case, take over?
Going by those who agree with Justice Mombingoge, they say that as soon as somebody is charged, you take plea in court. That's it.
Right.
You step aside. As soon as you.
What does stepping aside mean?
You do not operate the office.
No. You don't operate from the office, or the powers
you don't discharge your duties.
You don't discharge your duties, because if you remember
because
the same thing, the DPP mentioned this on Friday in regards to Ferdinand Waitito, when he said that we're also sending out a warning there as well, because he thought it to mean, or cleverly thought it to mean, that you're not going to let me get into that office. Well, I'll continue to discharge my duties even from a different location. But apparently this now played out to that as well. No, we're not talking about the office as a physical building. We're talking about your office and the operations thereof. So you will not discharge your duties as a governor at all, in any way, shape or form. So if you are charged and you do take plea, then you will not discharge your duties whatsoever. So I believe then in that case is when now the Speaker of the County Assembly would then take on the position of governor in an acting capacity. That's what we would have.
You're charged, this is it. Well, the matter is still, that ruling by Justice Mombingoge has actually been contested. It's in the Court of Appeal. We're waiting for the Court of Appeal to deliver the verdict on that.
It looks to me like this needs to be a decision that needs to be taken very quickly, because now we are seeing
more
than one occasion where a decision is needed.
Until then, this is it. It goes basically that way. But I'm actually even going beyond that. I'm saying, look at how the county government of Nairobi has been run in the last 2 years. All right. So we've had a governor. We've not had a deputy governor.
Right.
We've had a county assembly that's basically fighting one another. Right. The speaker has been kicked out. The speaker has been taken to court. The speaker has been brought back. The majority minority. There's so much turmoil within this government in total, that you feel that the voters of Nairobi are actually getting a raw deal. They're holding the short end of the stick in this particular case.
Well, I think
so. Looking at that, that's why I'm saying this gives us an opportunity. Let everybody go home. Let's have a fresh election. Let fresh people be elected. No, those ones who are there can also be re-elected.
That is only if
the 60 days have lapsed.
No. Not only that. Actually, this can even take a separate route altogether. Citizens of Nairobi County can petition the president to form a commission, and then the commission will go. The commission will look at the matter. Then
City's favorite set of people, these commission makers, informers,
like they did in the case of Makueni, right?
Yes.
And then presents the report to the president, and then the president goes ahead to agree with them.
Remember, Taita Taveta also have something similar going on
right now.
The governor of Embu had the longest fighting battle with, but remember, these were brought by the MCAs, remember?
Yes. In the case of Taita Taveta, or in the case of Martin Ombora in Embu, it was just impeachment process, constitutionally provided. Impeach the governor. That affects only the governor, and the governor goes home. The deputy actually does not need to go home. In this particular one, like what was happening in Makueni, it was dissolve the entire county government.
Right.
And
but
go to the
since
election.
There was, because since,
dissolve
and it was
entire.
all based on the fact that there was contention.
Yes.
There was so many uprisings here, there, the other things. Say, okay, you know what? Fine.
Nothing
You're
seems
not
to be
happy.
moving.
Nothing seems to be working. We start this. We're not able to get any kind of progress. Stop all of it. And let's start from the very beginning.
And that commission actually recommended to the president that dissolve this government. The president looked at it and said, I disagree with you guys. I think we still have an opportunity to make things work out.
They did. It was called an election.
The opportunity presented itself, and it
And I am
came.
informed that I think with the exception of probably one MCA,
Everybody else
went home.
And
So
the governor
now
came back.
Yes, and now he was able to work. Because the issue was the governor was being accused of not allowing enough benchmarking, among other things. Yes. So...
and now with the new crop, it seems to be allowing enough benchmarking.
Yes.
As it were.
So
they're working.
Exactly.
Who?
So,
I'm saying Makueni.
Or Makueni.
Yes.
Remember, I for the longest time assumed that Makueni was one of the counties that were piloting...
UHC.
Yes, because every other person seemed to be going to Makueni to benchmark.
On health.
Yes. They are not one of the four.
No, they're not.
But-
Their neighbors are, but they're not.
Which means they clearly understood it.
And they ran with it as well and didn't have to wait until a directive came along to
I'm
do
actually
something.
informed that the governor himself does not seek treatment outside the county. If he's unwell, he actually goes to that very same.
That's true.
Remember, we asked the same of the governor of Machakos. Yes. I can't remember his response.
His response was, yes, they go there, but also they give them an allowance to seek treatment wherever.
Actually, if indeed you do raise the levels of medical care to that particular standard, someone doesn't need to go anywhere. That really is what I'm trying to say.
That's true.
You actually don't need to leave. Remember, there is health and medical tourism as well. India enjoys it tremendously, and yet you'll find other people coming from other countries to come to Kenya to get treated.
It's true.
Yes.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. It's 12 minutes to 7 o'clock in the Situation Room this morning. My name is Eric Latif. We have City Muga and Nduoko, and we're discussing the wars bedeviling the Nairobi City County government. This morning I'm saying that, yes, so the governor is likely to be taken to court this morning. He'll take a plea, and going by the Justice Mombingoge ruling, he is likely also not to be able to access office or to discharge his duties as governor. Then what happens? Maybe the county assembly speaker takes charge, or maybe not. I'm saying forget about all those things. I'm just saying, look, this government has had issues upon issues from the first day. Resignation of a deputy governor, kicking out and returning of a speaker. Why not just dissolve the entire government and have fresh elections for MCAs and the governor?
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
At 11 to 7. Look at the case of Kiambu, for example, right? So in Kiambu, because we don't have a speaker, we have an acting deputy governor, rather. We have an acting deputy governor. We don't have a governor. We have a speaker of the county assembly. But now this acting deputy governor has many things that he cannot do. He attempted to get rid or shuffle the CECs, just moving one from this docket to the next. And that was blocked by the courts. You cannot touch the county executive as it stands.
Right.
He also attempted to, make a couple of decrees. He was told you cannot make some of these decisions. You are just here acting. He has had issues with the accessing the treasury. The treasury do not want to deal with him. They're like, we don't know you. We want to talk to the governor.
Right. So
And
you have a
that's
non-executive actor in this case in terms
completely.
of, what you're able to do or not. But if you look at Nairobi, I mean, like you said, 2 years ago, it was already dogged by quite a number of problems. And even more recently, when we look at just 3 months ago, and if we just have 5, the city roads have gone to the dogs, basically. These dogs, I don't know where they welcome and what they do. But I mean, look, the roads are in a terrible state. Water provision in the city is unbelievable. There's certain parts of the city that don't see water for, more than 2 to 3 days in a month. The cartels are a big issue, and it was a major issue of contention between Senate, between, MCAs, between the residents. You want to go and look at licensing and parking fees and things like that and where this money goes. You want to look at public transport within the city. And then you want to look at health facilities, again, within the city. Everything had gone to zero, basically. And now we're looking at 2 strikes about to happen today, Monday, because the road infrastructure is so terrible. People can't get to work. And then with the rains, we see even a more compounded issue. This was all happening when there was a governor, in place, all right? Now we don't have someone, and then we're going to bring in somebody who's a non-executive actor, because it's going to happen based on what you've said and the definitions or the lines that have already been drawn. Governor Sonko will take plea this morning. And even with that, he will not be allowed to discharge his duties as governor. So an acting person will come in. However, my fear is the city is even going to go further down this tunnel, whereby these problems had existed previously. And now with somebody who's not going to be able to execute, where are we going?
Basically, you'll have somebody who cannot make decisions.
Yeah. Can't make decisions. Just sit there for the name so that we say that the position is filled. So I think those things need to be looked at even deeper than now when we're making these decisions of who comes into act, especially looking at what is happening in a city that is the capital of the country, capital of the region, if you want to go even further and say that so many things already are not working. We talked about going to Rwanda for the meeting that we saw, the Kusi Ideas Festival that's happening right now. Today, we have the ACP conference, 10 heads of state coming to a city that's not working. What are we talking about?
When you say the city is not working, what do we mean exactly?
Well, I mean, look at the 5 things that I mentioned, for example. Again, the city roads, the infrastructure,
those are going to get worse. If you think
exactly,
they were bad,
they're going to get
with
worse.
The rain, they're going to get not worse. Infinitely
worse. Water provision in the city. There's several parts of the city, if you want to call them boroughs or whatever you want to talk about, that don't see water ever.
And is this something new, really? Did it come
this is what I'm saying.
Did it come with a governor, or has it always been there?
This is what I'm saying. Even with a governor, they have been there. Now we get to a place where anybody who has some kind of aspirations to make the city better, who would come in, they're going to already start from the beginning with huge weight on their shoulders.
And then we also have an absence of CECs. How many CECs were you told are missing from the county executive?
I think 3 were sacked.
3 were sacked.
Well,
some of them were
sacked.
There's an entire 5
there was
who
some
are not in office, right?
Yeah.
We don't even have a county.
I think
we
there
have an acting county secretary.
Yeah, I think there are 6 who were basically asked to go home until further notice.
Yeah.
And so now here we don't know under what docket.
So you don't have a
public
cabinet.
service.
You don't have a chair of the cabinet. You don't have a deputy chair of the cabinet. You only have a speaker coming to, be a caretaker for 60 days in this particular case. Who's going to be making decisions on what needs to be done?
What does it do to the again, remember, today, you have 10 heads of state coming to the country. Okay?
Who's welcoming them?
There's a question.
Who's going to talk about the city?
Today, specifically, who's going to talk about the city? I mean, it sounds funny, but really,
remember,
what are we doing?
The first time in this country when we had a high executive officer, a deputy, was when the former president Moi didn't have a deputy for, was it 9 months? Was it more? There was no vice president.
Right.
What I found strange during the time was that you actually forgot that you needed one. But this situation is a bit different.
It's a bit different. In this case, one would have
because
been needed.
There was no deputy. We figured, okay. But the question of what if was always asked.
Yeah.
But I want to ask a different question. This is Nairobi after all. And I did mention earlier on that it has its owners, so to speak. Perhaps, as Nyeri suggested on many occasions, this city ought to be managed differently. Or it ought to have probably a different status, given what it represents to the nation as a whole, and given, its size and the portion of the economy that it actually controls. Yes. But that aside, the question that I have to ask, given that this is Kenya and a lot of our political issues are normally just not political, whose toes did Sonko step on? Is the question I am asking, because there is nothing that Sonko is being charged with that literally every other governor cannot be charged with. And I say literally, I mean there are exceptions. But those exceptions, by their very nature, are few. Then number 2, the question I ask is, Sonko as a person, Governor Mike Mbuvi.
Gideon.
Gideon. Okay? He is one genuinely popular individual. He seems to represent a certain demographic that are solidly behind him, and it represents them.
Right.
What is it about his power? Because his power base isn't waning. All the problems of the city of Nairobi notwithstanding, his power base doesn't seem to wane. So, what really is happening here? Yes, he may be accused of everything that he's being accused of. As I said, so can almost every other governor. What has Mike Sonko done? They could have arrested him. Last week, I'll be told, maybe the evidence
they hadn't gathered enough evidence, but by Friday they had gathered all that they needed.
But how long has he been governor now? 3rd year?
It's been taking them some time, The gathering of evidence is a tedious process.
No,
and they've got
I see where
City is going.
City is picking hairs and just splitting them into small bits.
Yes, I am.
What is it
am.
that's happening to this governor? Yes, those are valid questions.
I'm going to take this issue back.
Why was he arrested on Friday and not on Wednesday or
Thursday? Monday or Tuesday.
Or even today.
So the evidence was only ready on Thursday, so they could arrest him on
Yes.
No. He's not the only person who was arrested on Friday, was he? He's not the only person.
Others in his government
People also
were
get arrested on Friday.
Why do you only look at them
when
they elected? I actually did mention this, and I said any high-profile individual, when they arrest you on a Friday, a statement is being made. There was a time they arrested many individuals from the Kenya pipeline. Friday.
Yes.
I'm asking why?
Kamata Fridays. So they're called.
Look, this is not the first time a politician has been hounded out of office. Nairobi there is no other county in this country like Nairobi County, okay? And it appears that Sonko has rubbed some people the wrong way, and he's rubbed the wrong people the wrong way.
A couple of weeks ago, we talked about the fact, we talked about, the statement that was made by some members of Senate and some members of Parliament around Nairobi, whereby they were basically, forwarding a vote of no confidence in what the executive of the county had or had not been able to do.
Yep.
And when we spoke about that, he came out very clearly, guns blazing, and he said, look, it's because I'm fighting the cartels that these folks are after me. Had I not been fighting the cartels in the manner in which I have been fighting them over the last few months, everybody would be quiet. And so, yes, I'm a dangerous man because I am trying to get rid of these cartels. Now, the cartels, in terms of their strength, is actually something you don't want to play around with because, and I put that in quotes, you don't want to play around with if you want to remain safe, as it were, because like you said, it's a phenomenon that has been there forever.
But of course, every person who faces this kind of allegations always fights back. The cartels are fighting.
It's always a cartel.
This may be one of the reasons
my people are being
if
targeted.
City is looking for something this morning in terms of why Sonko, this could be the answer.
I'm actually not even looking.
The cartels are fighting.
I'm not looking. Look at the manner
through
in which
the office of the law.
Look at the manner in which the man goes about his business. It's unusual. Other governors don't go about their business the way he does. They don't live the way he lives. Everything about him is uniquely different. All right. But as for the issue of him fighting cartels, a politician speaking, that really doesn't mean much. Not really.
Fighting cartels is just that. Fighting cartels. Or creating your own and trying to sideline the existing cartels.
Well, that is fighting cartels.
That's also fighting cartels.
Yes, in that respect, he may actually be right. He was fighting cartels.
Yes.
Open up the phone line 0719-012-600. 0719-012-600. Should Nairobi City be dissolved? It's 7 o'clock.
Use the roads to community Milimani and trying to pass the law courts, you're not going to be able to this morning because that area has already been barricaded, and of course this has everything to do with the court case for the governor this morning where the mention will be heard. So those two areas coming in and out from community have been barricaded and nobody's getting through. You're going to have to use an alternate route right now until that is over. Situation on the Eastern Bypass, we are now at 8 lanes and counting. Unfortunately, everybody's trying to use the Eastern Bypass to get into and out of the city because Mombasa Road is not an option. It's an absolute standstill right from outside Gateway Mall all the way through to Nyayo Stadium roundabout. It's not happening this morning, folks, especially not on Mombasa Road. Kasarani Mwiki Road, the strike, or rather the protest that was scheduled to happen this morning is already taking place, and so that means nobody's getting in or out of Kasarani today until something is done about the poor state of the roads. All right, Ngong Road towards Kabwagi Water, all over. Please drive extremely carefully. Nobody's using their fog lights, folks. Please put them on because the fog is quite low this morning and the rains are coming down quite heavily. The Thika Superhighway is also a problem all the way from the Safari Park Hotel. Let's see what it looks like around the city in a short while. Coming off Langata Road is not so bad right now. Let's see what it looks like in a short while. 0719 012 600.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not
it's
down.
3 minutes past 7 o'clock.
This
Good morning.
is
How are
the
you doing? How are you
Situation
starting
Room.
your day? In
The
Nairobi,
only way
it's
to
starting
start
off as
your
a
day.
rainy morning. Of course, we've just been told how the roads are looking like in the morning. And we're also hearing what the situation is like on Milimani Road, where near the EACC headquarters. What's happening there again?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, it's all been blocked off. The GSU is in that area, has barricaded or around Integrity Center, and also Kilimani, where and the law courts as well, where the mention is going to take place this morning. So, of course, there's anticipation that there will be some protests from would-be Governor Sonko protesters, or rather followers. And so they're taking every precautionary measure to make sure that everything is kept at peace. But that's going to affect traffic majorly this morning, as we know it.
So, of course, we've discussed this man Sonko and how he came to power and how he came to office. Remember, this man came into the limelight through a by-election, right? The by-election in Makadara, and then he became an MP, and from that point he starts completely shone. He went to be the senator of Nairobi one term. Next time he's governor of Nairobi, and even during the campaigns for governor he had serious opposition, opposition from among the people who were coming together and banding together and saying this is how we want Nairobi to be run. And those politicians also, had their own preferred candidates. And Mike Movie Sonko said, "What do you mean? Are you saying that I am less Jubilee than the rest? Let's go to the Jubilee nominations." He basically threw a ruckus around it, and Jubilee had to hold a nomination, and he won that nomination exercise. He was given the ticket. Of course, he chose a deputy, and he said, "Let me look for somebody from the corporate world who understands, how to run corporate things, and bring him to the fore." Picked Polycarp Igathe. They came together with Polycarp Igathe. Polycarp, after a couple of months, resigned. And we all understand why Polycarp was resigning. Is basically, he was just, soon after a phone recording was released. Remember? There were issues about, Polycarp and are they working together really with the governor. And then the governor unleashes a recording of a phone conversation with your deputy. And a couple of days later, the deputy governor thanked the governor for choosing him for the joint ticket and saying, "I wish you well as you serve the people of Nairobi. I shall serve them in different capacity." So you see, this man is a man who started going against the grain from the very beginning.
Well,
the grain was trying to ensure that he does not get the ticket. He went against that grain. The grain was trying to ensure that, so now what you're going to do is you're going to be the political guy. You'll be making noise around, but then the county itself will be run by somebody else. He came in and said, absolutely no way, I'm running this county. Went against the grain again.
But I hear you saying the grain is, so from what you're saying, the grain seems to still be pushing him out, as it were.
Grain. I have that feeling. It's a grain. Look, there was even an attempt, the first person who had been appointed as the county secretary. And unfortunately, he's also, this Peter Kariuki is also among the people who are going to be arraigned in court. He's been cited by the DPP. This person, there was all this talk that, he had been pushed from the higher ups. Come and be the county secretary. So you have Polycarp Igathe as the deputy. You have a county secretary who is, coming from the national executive. This person had actually worked in the previous government, Uhuru Tawan government, as an advisor, senior advisor in Uhuru Tawan government. Then now he's coming into county secretary in Nairobi. He's he has been climbing hills all along from the
very beginning.
From
There have been many. Would it be roadblocks that he's had to overcome?
Yes.
To get to where he is at this point, and it seems that this is now one of the biggest roadblocks that he's ever had to cross over. But then, when we look at it like that, then we have to look at the side of the allegations as well, and say, okay, even with all of that taken into consideration, these allegations, do they or not have some kind of merit? And to say that, okay, but the DPP coming out so strongly on Friday and talking about the evidence that they've been able to gather over time. As I say, there's no smoke without fire.
Yep.
These allegations, they stem from somewhere. There's some information that they've been able to get. And of course, we will not be privy to that until it comes out to the public. But these folks have something that they've held this guy on. They've got something, regardless of all the roadblocks that he's seen along through his political career, and then trying to be at the helm of Nairobi as the leader or as the chief executive of the county. These allegations that have been brought against him, somebody knows something. There's something in terms of a trail, and something has been picked up on and said, look, this is just not making sense, and the only way is to charge you or to arrest you for that.
Interesting political leadership.
Sorry, Siti, it would be hard for me to believe that all of this, whether they be allegations, is made up.
No, I don't think they are made up. Remember, my contention was, which of our governors can you not accuse of the same things? Almost copy-paste.
All of them.
So that's why I have to go beyond that and say, okay, what
did
really
he do that
is
you want to press
going
him
on here?
But he's not the first one again also, CT.
No, he isn't.
He's not even the second.
No, he may not even be
Why
the
didn't
third
you
or
ask this
fourth.
question when Governor Lenore Kulal of Samburu was taken to court?
For the simple reason that he wasn't governor of Nairobi.
All right. Why didn't you ask the same question when the governor of Kiambu was taken to court?
He is not governor of Nairobi.
So you have answered your own question.
No.
What is it that Sonko has done?
No.
Proximity.
He's the governor of Nairobi.
No,
as well.
He's close to the heartbeat of the
that
government,
the
as
wheel,
it were.
The wheel is grinding. So we started with Samburu. We've gone to Kiambu. We've also seen issues and Governor of Murang'a, for example, being taken to EACC. We have seen Governor Mutua was here. He told us in the previous government he had faced similar charges. Again,
Mutua was not taken to jail.
It wasn't jail.
He wasn't arrested.
Most of these governors go to the Senate. The Anti-Corruption Commission talks to them. They visit them.
Lenore
Kulal
Kulal has been in the dock.
Yes, as has been their father.
Yes,
okay?
their father has also been in the dock.
Waitito was in the dock.
Yes,
Right.
he was. Yes, he was. All I'm saying is this. The Nairobi is not like any other county. Someone is saying, well, the counties are not the same. They are fairly similar. This is the capital of the country.
The capital of the region, even if you want to look at it even further
Yes,
and go deeper.
it has immense financial potential and capacity. It has immense everything. Okay? Anything big you think of this country is housed here. So it can't be that when something happens with governor, it's coincidental. It is not possible. See, the uniqueness of Sonko is something that you can compare perhaps with other leaders. The person that comes to mind, now there are those who will tell me you don't dare, but I am going to. Obama, one-term senator, not second, one term. Goes for the presidency, unlikely, wins. Second term,
Forget it.
unlikely, wins. Now, difference, you couldn't find fault with the man. They tried. They tried the Muslim tag. They tried the African tag. Man, didn't they try?
They looked for everything.
He smoked cannabis when he was young. He said, yes, I did.
Even worse, he's from Kenya.
Yes.
His father is from Kenya.
And his father was a Muslim.
Was-
And his
was he
people
born-
are
was he born in
Muslim.
America?
God, was he brought here after he had been born? If you can't blame the Republicans for trying, they tried. But if I were to bring back the comparison, our governor, there's hardly any day when something controversial wasn't happening around him. And unfortunately, it didn't have to do with good governance. Unfortunately. Every time, it's like the man determined that he was going to be a maverick, he was going to be a nonconformist. Well, that's what it appears. And I get the impression he got to a point where he thought, well, I can get away with these things. Now, that's impunity rearing its head in the worst possible manner. And I asked the question, and I'm trying to answer it. What comes to my mind? I think it came to the attention of some that if this man isn't made to toe the line, he could cause more problems than he can do good.
In this case, what would
His
towing
trajectory.
the line? What
Yes.
would towing the line
Looking
be?
at
The
his
way in which he
trajectory.
was
Yes, I mean,
going,
yes.
you know,
He's
the way in
gonna-
which
he's
they needed
gonna
to
hit the
rein him
stars.
in.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. Because
they needed to rein him in. Don't succeed too much.
there's some tolerance level he had surpassed, and they figured no,
This guy
this we're not going to put up
need
with.
to be bridled.
And I don't think it's even in what we see. What we see is a manifestation of whatever else was going on behind the scenes that we can't see. By the time a joint statement from the governors don't come out directly to support one of their own, you have to ask the question, what did he do to the other governors?
everybody else.
Yes. Because no one seems to, it's like the people who seem to support him, as we say, are his support base.
Right.
But even then,
Interestingly enough, when you talk about his support base, and even further, the people who seem to support him are the people he at one time supported. Yeah.
Yes.
The people that he gave these jobs that we're looking at, the people that he helped to pay bills that were pending, the people that he took out of hospital, the people that he gave the 1,000 shillings a day job, the people that he supported are the ones now who seem to support him. And just like you talked about Trump a few minutes ago, the people who mattered when it came to putting him into office by giving him their vote. Again, here we see the same thing. On Friday, by the time he had been brought to Nairobi, we had people who were burning things already at Integrity Center. And that's the kind of support that we're talking about. And those are the ones then who rally support. Because what
By
are you
the
going to
Those
do?
are a few paid goons. Yes.
Representative of a larger group of
it
people who
is-
voted him in.
It is representative, but
Yeah.
what Eric is saying should not be discounted. We do have goons for hire in this country. And that's not to discount the fact that he has support. But I was talking of Obama, but you brought Trump in. I was going to mention Trump in comparison again, because look at the number of people Trump has sacked. For them to have been appointed in the first place, it means these were his supporters. And there are many. And, you know,
There are many, yeah.
and in serious senior positions that you don't just appoint someone for. This has to be a supporter of yours whom you believe has your back. Now, when these people are sacked and they say, no, or some resign and say, I'm having difficulties working with the president. What does it tell you? In fact, if you were to give an accurate comparison, you might want to compare our governor of Nairobi with President Trump of the U.S.
Yeah, exactly.
They seem to share similar traits. Behavior that is not easy to define or distinguish or even understand. It's not even surprises. It's like knee-jerk reactions. Every once in a while when you think this is what they're going to do, they do something completely opposite. But what they end up achieving is apparently alienating friends and making some serious enemies.
In this particular one, we have a governor who, yes, has alienated almost everybody in terms of looking at the COG, looking at the executive as well, looking at his senator, a number of his MPs. Of course, there are those MPs that support him still. But then what way for Mike Sonko? If he survives this, then what next for him? Actually, that's also the other question. So yesterday the president was again in Kiambu County, and he spoke about leaders carrying their own crosses if they face allegations of corruption or if they're actually called in by the DPP. And this is what he said.
Mimi nataka niwahakikishie kupigana na ufisadi tutapigana. Hiyo ni lazima. Na nawauliza Wakenya wote, jameni, hii sio kazi ya mtu mmoja au watu wawili. Hii ni jukumu letu sisi wote, wananchi milioni 47 wa jamhuri hii yetu ya Kenya. Na tuache kuingiza siasa katika mambo ya kupigana na ufisadi. Ukiwa wewe ni nani, hata ukiwa unaitwa Uhuru, ama unaitwa Kamau, ama unaitwa Patel, ama unaitwa Onyango, ama unaitwa nani, wakati ulikuwa unafanya mambo ya ufisadi, hukuwa na familia, hukuwa na jamii, hukuwa na kanisa, uliiba peke yako. Beba msalaba peke yako, usiingize mambo mengi. Na kuna njia tofauti. Sisi kama taifa ambalo lakini kuheshimu sheria, kuna njia ambaye sisi tunaamini ya kwamba kila mmoja wetu is innocent until proven guilty. Na kuna njia taratibu ambazo tuafuata kuhakikisha ya kwamba kila mtu anapata haki yake ya kujitetea.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, right here on Spice FM, broadcasting from Nairobi to Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi, also worldwide on www.spicefm.co.ke, Facebook, live streaming Spice FM KE, our YouTube channel is Spice FM KE. Join the conversation on Twitter at Spice FM KE, and the hashtag is The Situation Room. Of course, this morning, we're looking at what happens to Nairobi County. Should Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko, Gideon Mike Mbuvi Sonko, be taken to court? Should he take a plea today? Then going by Justice Mombengoge's ruling, then that means that he does not have access to his office. We don't have a deputy governor, so who takes over in an acting capacity? The Constitution says if the governor and the deputy are not able to, then the Speaker of the County Assembly takes charge, but an election must be held within 60 days.
Well,
So
regardless,
Elachi can only be, acting governor for 60 days.
unless of course she runs for election.
60
and then
days
it's
is a
voted
long
in.
time in politics.
Without the powers,
means that
without the
campaigns start
powers,
immediately.
campaigns start immediately. In
Peter
this
Kenneth
case,
can now actually just throw in the ring again.
well, the
And
arraignment
everybody
will,
else. And
the-
Miguna can come back.
Oh, that would be interesting. The arraignment will take place this morning. So regardless of what happens, he will be arraigned, and regardless of what happens thereafter, still he will not come and sit in public office. So we can assume that elections will take place within the next 2 months, based on what we know. And it was interesting that the president talked about the fact that there are processes, a way in which we do things, and I'm translating it. I don't think I'm fairly off. The way in which we do things, but we also believe in that process, and that was what he said in that statement that he made. And we are going to follow it. We do believe that a person is innocent until proven guilty. However, the process will take place, and we believe in this process as the people of Kenya. Now, when I was looking at this previously, when we talk about the charges that have been leveled against Sonko and these other individuals, obviously the DPP and his office did their homework. I don't think they pulled anything out of the hat, because if you look at the 8 offenses that they're being charged with: conspiracy to commit an offense of corruption contrary to the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, willful failure to comply with the law relating to procurement contrary to section 45 of the same act, conflict of interest contrary again to another section of the same act, abuse of office, unlawful acquisition of public property, deceiving principal contrary to another section, money laundering contrary again to the same act, or rather to the Anti-Money Laundering Act, acquisition of proceeds of crime contrary again to the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act of 2009. 8 charges leveled. And basically what the DPP is saying here is that you have failed the public. All of these things that you have done is tantamount to failing the public. And for that reason, we're going to bring you to court. So by the time they've come up with all of this, again, I don't think it's a rabbit out of the hat situation. This is something that they took their time to do. Investigations clearly were taking place, none or unbeknownst to us as a public, but this is something they went about to do detailed. And so the DPP even went further to say, look, you've not just done these things and maybe abused your office, but you failed the people of the country. And for that alone, upon that, you shouldn't be able to stand.
Aha!
There you go.
The DPP clearly listens to this show. Remember when we talked about a social contract?
Social contract.
Yes. And we said, when someone makes a promise and doesn't keep it, they're lying. They should be jailed. No, forget many stories. Jailed. Now, here's the DPP coming up and saying, this man had a social contract with the people of Nairobi and he has not upheld his end of the bargain. This case is a good one because the sort of case that will set a precedent for all our politicians,
right,
be they MCAs, MPs, be they senators, whoever it is who holds public office and keeps making wild promises to the Mwananchi and doesn't fulfill them, their day is nigh. Again, in this very same show, we discussed this. Remember the time when you said, the president has said this before. Well, I want to quote myself here, and I said, it isn't as though nothing is.
It's
Being
happening.
done.
Yes, a lot is happening. The fact that people are being brought to court, that alone is something.
Yeah.
And the question was, but why are they not being jailed? But unfortunately, there's something called the law. And it
There's a
has
process for that.
And we should thank God their processes. Because in the absence of that, it means you're arrested, jailed.
Straight up.
End of story.
Yeah.
Then what do? There are countries where that still happens today. You're caught, put in jail,
Finish.
they even forget. Now, I know that the law that governed detention was repealed, if I'm not wrong. Was it still there? No, it was repealed.
It was repealed.
Okay? Now, it means you can't actually do that. But the bottom line is this. If you understand that someone, and Eric here, I believe you do have a very valid point, it's escalating. Let's start from Samburu. A place most people don't. If you ask them on the map of Kenya, where is it? They'll pause and say,
What's the capital of Samburu?
yes, or they'll say, and you say it's Laikipia. You say, no, it can't. It can't be Laikipia because there's a governor also.
And there's no place called Laikipia.
There's no place called Laikipia. Then you say Nanyuki. You say, okay, you'll go on,
Yeah.
okay? Then you move it slightly up. You bring it to the point where you come next door to Nairobi. A genuinely popular person.
Yep.
But to the point where their father has become completely quiet. Completely quiet. And then now you land on the city itself. I fear for people who are in parastatals.
You can see this. It was a long one. Eh?
No. This
It was a
thing.
journey.
Yes, even I didn't see this.
I'm going to quote you again, CT, and you'll be happy. This is a good day, Abby. Rub yourself. Very Your back,
Eric,
pat
you
your-
can also prepare your quote. Yes. Let's start with the you and do. Yes.
Look, talking about mistrust and then heading to distrust. You said this so many times, and I think the DPP also now, the clarion call was very clear from him. And I quote from the statement that he made on Friday, and he said, whenever public trust is betrayed by those in positions of authority, by misusing their privilege to conspire, connive, and commit crimes against the people, our laws expressly mandate the law enforcement agencies and specifically the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions to step up and safeguard the public good and interest. So you see now in this case where mistrust has taken place from at the point of the people, specifically for a county with such a profile as Nairobi, it's not happening. And needless to say, this is not just at the seat of the governor alone, but across board. We just talked about parastatals. We talked about MCAs. We've talked about CSs, PSs, senators. We've talked about members of the Senate. We talked about members of parliament. If at the point you're not expending your duties, or you do something that causes the people to mistrust you after they've given you the mandate to expend certain duties, then you can actually call upon the law. What we said, do what? Be jailed. And the Director of Public Prosecution sees it as his inherent duty, because you've caused the people of Kenya to mistrust you, then there's no other place for you. By these things that you have done. And now because of that, these charges that we're going to bring them against you, holding the people at the center of it all and saying because of that alone, we will not allow you to walk free.
Bas. Which brings me back to the point. Now, look at what the DPP is saying. Look at what we are saying. I mean, somebody is actually being taken to court to face all these charges, right? We know the drama that we have basically seen at the county assembly. Now, you're saying that a Speaker of the County Assembly can act for 60 days and then, of course, we go to an election and elect a governor and a deputy governor. But then we'll be leaving a problem that we've been having with the County Assembly.
Right.
With an ineffective County Assembly, there's nothing that the executive will do because the County Assembly should be approving budget. The County Assembly should also be doing the checks and balances. The people of Nairobi have basically been taken for a ride. And I am saying just dissolve the entire government. County Assembly, nyumbani. We don't have a deputy governor. We have a governor. Even those nyumbani. Let's have a fresh election for Nairobi County all together. Let's elect fresh people in MCAs. Let's elect a fresh governor and deputy governor. And this is what the COG is. When the COG is saying, let's have a meeting with the president, an urgent meeting with the president to discuss
that
these
they want to
things.
go. Yeah.
Instead of saying, give it to a ministry, let the ministry run this thing and deny the people their rightful choice of having a county of Nairobi. let's give the Nairobi people another chance. Elect a fresh government and see what this fresh government can do for you for the next 2.5 years.
Well, you know what you also do is that you provide the opportunities for, there's been quite some hue and cry recently, and people have been saying, my goodness, what choice did we make in terms of then what did we get as a people? I'm not even talking about leaders. What did we get as a leader who was going to maybe steer this city or steer this county in a particular direction? And we feel that, okay, perhaps we didn't make the right choice then in terms of who was going to come in for us and make sure that the city is actually running and be a place that is habitable, or creating a conducive environment.
We didn't make the wrong choice.
People feel that, okay, if they had done something different, maybe they would be getting different results.
Actually, no. Remember, when you talk about positions that people acquire legitimately through being voted in, you have to ask yourself the role of popularism in such issues.
Oh, I mean, I think he was quite popular. 800,000
He
votes
remained
in Nairobi.
Third,
right.
after the president, the opposition leader Raila Odinga.
It was
third.
him. Yeah.
It was him.
Third.
With the most votes.
Now, his power hasn't waned, by the way. No, he has a genuine appeal. Now, that demographic is an important demographic. It's extremely important. And anyone who ignores it, it's to their own peril. But the issue here isn't even that. The issue isn't even mismanaging. There are people who've mismanaged entire countries. The issue is one of impunity. Where do you actually stop?
So regardless of whether you're popular or not.
No, it's not being even eccentric. People can be eccentric and they are popular and they actually know what but it's impunity. When do you stop?
When do you stop?
Yes. When do you rationalize what you're doing and say, hey, I actually need to.
I need to actually rein myself in. And
I need to have a check and balance. But that often happens when you actually have a check and balance. Remember, in a country, you have an opposition that's supposed to do that.
Yeah.
And right now that we don't appear to have what we ought to, and we still do, I don't actually understand this hue and cry about the handshake killing the opposition. I don't, because this situation is not dissimilar to 2007. It's not dissimilar at all. It's just that we had people coming in to help us make peace, and they said, okay, you'll have a coalition government.
Well, you know where they're coming from is that, if an opposition was basically supposed to then, point out whereby they felt the government was not doing what they should do for the people, they would be the ones to raise the finger, raise the hand and say, this is not going right. But in this situation, whereby you have the opposition and government working together as it were, then it would be, according to them, it would not be easy for you to...
They're not speaking of the opposition.
It would not be easy for them to then point out where the government of the day were going wrong.
The discussion here is not about the opposition. It's about the personification of the opposition. Opposition politics in this country
was Raila Odinga.
Yeah, it is. The person of Raila.
Yes.
Because I would assume in the handshake, that particular position was left wide open to people who were in his party or in his coalition.
But they've always followed him. They've always followed him, and in terms of directive, he was the one who.
But he's leading them to the position that they are in now as well.
And they are fighting tooth and nail. Yes, with every breath that they have, they're criticizing the move. So they are in fact opposing him. But the opportunity which was created hasn't been taken by them, has it?
Right. I want to bring up the phone lines now, 0719-012-600. Do you agree with me when I say that the entire county government of Nairobi should be dissolved? That is, send the MCAs home and have fresh elections for MCAs and governor. 0719-012-600. It's 7:30.
Traffic.
So if you're trying to get to Mwiki from Outer Ring Road, you have to go that way, use Kangunda Road, and then to Njiru, and then branch to Mwiki. Your normal Monday morning is going to take you a lot longer. The Eastern Bypass is jam-packed in and outbound on both sides. We had 8 lanes earlier. Now we're somewhere between 10 and 11, unfortunately. Yes, unbelievably. The traffic police along Kasarani Mwiki Road are just basically standing by to see what happens with those protests. All right, along Gong Road. The road is a river, is what we are being told. It's not happening, and people are having to traverse the waters to get where they're going. Avoid Brookside Drive in Westlands and part of Lower Kabete Road this morning. The water levels are quite high, and we have already one vehicle submerged at this point, hoping that the water levels will drop as we go through the day. But with the rains that we see coming down, that is not likely to happen. Remember, community area this morning, the buses are turning and using Valley Road to connect at the traffic area, and that is because of the barricade we see having been put up by the GSU because of the arraignment that will happen in court this morning. So community is giving us some problems. Coming into the city centre will not be easy. So from Thika Road to Wayaki Way to Ngong Road is traffic jam all around, as well as Mombasa Road this morning. You're going to have to sit it out and be patient, but in about half an hour we'll see how things have changed or if they've remained the same. 0719-012-600 is the number to call. Let us know where you might be stuck.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So 0719-012-600, that's 0719-012-600. Do you agree that the Nairobi County government should be dissolved in entirety? That is sending the MCAs home and also the governor and the vacant deputy governor, and have a fresh election for Nairobi City County. Have fresh MCAs, or you can re-elect some of them or all of them and have a new governor as well as a deputy governor. George Courier is posting a comment on Facebook, says, yes, in fact, the Nairobi should be taken back to the Metropolitan Ministry to be headed by a CS. David Harp says, yes, I agree with that, like yesterday. Mwawana Muema on Facebook as well also says, I agree with that. What do you think? 0719-012-600. I have seen also some comments, when we talk about the COG members seem to have disowned one of their own. Those are saying, it appears like Governor Sonko has never
been one of their own.
Has never attended even the summits that they have, never attended any of their summits. So they basically have no connection with him.
Right. Being a different kind of guy, he seemed to have been a different kind of guy even when his colleagues were concerned, where his colleagues were concerned in terms of what he did to join with them in terms of, like initiatives, etc. So I guess they're hard pressed also to offer any kind of support because they really didn't understand. And I say this, didn't really comprehend his way of doing things. So then it was hard for them to buddy up or chummy up with him, as it were. But we do see a situation that is very clear to us today, based on the rulings that we've seen, just as you talked about Mumbi Ngugi and what she said, giving that ruling. We're not going to see Mike Sonko in this position. We are not. And people might be thinking that he will come back and it will be fine after today being Monday and the arraignment, etc., etc. But this is what the law. This is what, it's not. It is not fine, and this is what the law. Because there were thoughts that he'll come and then he'll be granted bail and he'll come back to office. He won't be.
He may even be granted bail. He may even go back to he may even best case scenario, but it will not be the same.
It will not be the same.
Consider for a while. How do you get to talk to someone who has a track record of recording everything that people say to him?
Yep.
And then airing out in public, in the social media, where anyone across the globe can actually
pick it up.
Now, that's a man he doesn't endear himself, neither does he generate trust, even among his contemporaries. Because some of the people he has aired out in that horrible, terrible light have been people who supposedly were close to him. Now, if people get to the point where they don't trust you, but you believe because you have popular support, you can actually get away with things. Now, that is what you call amplified impunity. It's what it is. In other words, you get a God complex. There is a certain pastor who seems to have something similar. Many pastors do, but this this particular one appears in the papers more often than others. He was involved in some accident some times back, and he says just about the most ungodly and the craziest things you can ever hear. That's a God complex.
It's a God complex.
And it's impunity. He seems to think that he can get away.
And all he needs to do is call the name of God 2-3 times and he'll be fine.
Actually, he's God. If I read about him, that gentleman actually thinks he's God. This is the God you refer to. He also refers to. It's like he's referring to his equal partner in the business area. So and so. let me address these people.
Let me deal with this
matter.
one.
Yes, you chill for a while. I mean, he addresses us puny mortals, yes, and tells us where to get off.
We see, can we draw a similar thread with the way in which the governor has purported, or the way in which he has carried himself recently? I mean, just a week and a half ago, we heard him say, yes, I am a dangerous man and I am the man in terms of how we're going to deal with this
That's
thing.
a politician speaking.
Well, I mean, you can be clear, just the way in which he spoke, you can be clear that he really didn't understand that he is the one who was going to sort out this mess. When it came to the cartels, he said it and he was very clear. They're fighting me. I am going to show them that I am the one who is going to sort them out.
Indeed. When he called in here, I mean, he spoke about how it's just cartels that are fighting. It's cartels that are fighting him. He even told us about the case of the Dandora Stadium where he's rehabilitating that and saying, look, this contractor was trying to bulldoze their way into making more money than they should. And I was fighting that. And this is the same thing that those MPs are raising here
Now
with
they want
issues.
me out,
They just want me out because of this kind of issues and that.
Do you know what muddies these waters completely? Is this. We have a situation where we have a political class that we actually can't trust fully.
Yes.
This is me at my politest. Then you have an executive who, led by the Ministry of Finance, have brought into the open dealings that make you reel in wonder, and you wonder what on earth is happening here. Further revelations, you figure these guys were just talking and saying things. And eminent individuals who are in that same ministry, like the central bank, the leader tells you, some of these things were, and it's contrary to what you're hearing before. So, yes, we have problems, but the problems you hear coming out or emanating from the leadership in many, many ministries, you wonder. We now have floods. Now, this one, some would argue, but what could they have done to prepare? Yes, it's not what they could have done to prepare. Even, let's forget what they could have done to prepare. What are they doing now? Okay? Again, that raises questions. Remember, if a whole area is raining, you don't have to keep people in that area. Move them out even of that county and take them somewhere else. Solutions are not limited just to one particular geographical area.
Yeah.
Then you have someone like the governor coming in with these issues. You really wonder and say, what on earth? Now, it's exacerbated further when people who are arrested, in our mind, nothing seems to be happening. But as I have contended before, it isn't nothing. It's escalating. When we had the arrests of two principals in the Ministry of Finance, I said, okay.
This is it, man.
No. Where is this going to end? Because it's heading in a particular direction.
It's heading up.
It's heading up.
Yeah.
It isn't accidental. It's heading up. And, well, I have a ringside seat to this one. So
you're just watching.
I'm just watching.
There's those also who will argue that some of these things that the DPP and the DCI and the EACC do are just for showbiz. So, for instance, all those cases that have been taken to court, what's happening to those cases? NYS 1, NYS 2 cases are still ongoing. They haven't really started the cases properly. Look at the cases against the two governors, for example, Lenol Kulal and their father. Cases, how far have those cases gone? Are you seeing progress in those cases? Talking about a case now coming to be mentioned in mid-2020.
Eric, if we consider, were those cases brought to court under certificate of urgency?
No, you apply under certificate of urgency if you're seeking something quick, fast.
Yes.
Right?
Now, if it isn't quick, fast, then it follows. It's a case. Okay? It may be against the governor, but it's a case.
It's a case.
Yes. And
So
I'm
join
sure
the queue like everybody else.
actually
Absolutely.
you will join the queue.
Right. Now, why join a longer queue where you can see the case being presented by the prosecution is actually the one that's taking long? Right? The
Again,
prosecution has gone to court. The prosecution applies for, a couple of more days so they can conclude investigations. Why are you taking somebody to court before you conclude your investigations?
at that point you have to ask who do these people think they are fooling? Because I do not think, if you understand the workings of, say, the DCI or the Anti-Corruption Commission, the theory of it, or if you talk to people who work there, these fellows are not as disorganized as they're made to appear.
Oh no, that's and I thought about that just over this weekend, and I thought, you know what, these folks actually have it together.
They do know what they're doing.
Yes, they do.
So when they're delaying the
contrary
case in
to
court,
contrary to
why
what
do they
they
do that?
would want you to believe by what you see on the outside, they seem to be quite ordered in what they're doing, and when they say they have enough, like just for an example, when they say they have enough evidence, for example, I tend to believe the guy. And I tend to believe that they do have quite a wealth or quite an amount in terms of what they could level against in terms of charges. So
then
that
why
also
don't they
makes
level it? Because that's you see, those who complain against the DPP and the DCI and the EACC, they talk about, yes, so you've called a press conference here and you've talked really tough. You've said this person, we're going to charge them on 10 counts. Even the CJ the other day said, look, you come and you're charging 20 people, each of them with 20 counts.
It's going to take time, but then also makes you...
It will take time.
What are you doing in this case?
Will
and then the
time.
first thing that you want to do is say, you call for, let's adjourn this session today because we still haven't tied out a couple of loose ends.
It doesn't
By the time
mean,
the case
it doesn't
proper
mean
starts,
because it doesn't mean because
6
the
months.
case that is being brought against you is weighty that it's going to take 3 minutes to get it sorted out. It doesn't mean that because of that the speed and alacrity with which you deal with it is tantamount to the weight of the charge that is brought. It is going to take time because you can imagine the mention of
and it isn't the only case in the country.
There are other
and
cases
it's not
that
as
are
though
going on.
The officers involved are increased given the severity or the complexity of the case.
Yeah.
The question that I feel there are 3 questions we're dealing with. One, when you talk about bottleneck, is it a system or are they individuals who happen to be on that desk or that chair or that bench on the day that it comes to them, or the individual handling the case? Individual, not system. Because do you see a situation the DCI says, I have an officer who bungled this, or say, we had evidence, it was lost in court. Number one. Number two, I have to ask this particular question because if you consider the systems that something like the Anti-Corruption Commission have, it's actually really very thorough. Those cases don't go to court because somebody woke up in the morning and Those fellows have investigators. Huh? They even have people who play the role of prosecutors. They even have people who will play the role of magistrates. People who understand, people who've studied the law. And before those things are taken up, they have to pass this particular litmus test. It doesn't just go because someone has brought it up. So the question you have to ask is, that's why I'm asking the question. Is it that when the case goes to court on that particular day, it finds an individual who's otherwise disinclined or inclined? Or is it because you then ask the question, if these officers who take it, or are they the ones who muddle this case deliberately? Why it has to be asked is because this country we have known such things to happen.
Right.
And speaking from the victim's side, now, if you just imagine today, CT, you are paraded in court. So the DPP called a press conference and said, you're going to arrest CT Muga because of 1 or 2 and 3 charges, right? And CT Muga is going to be arraigned in court. So you're arraigned in court.
Yes.
On the first day you are arraigned in court, they say, you know what, we are not prepared to make him take a plea today. We'd like for an adjournment. Come next week. Already the public knows that CT Muga is accused of corruption, this and the other.
Because it's been the public domain.
Completely.
I've actually, my case has been determined in public and I've actually even been jailed by the public.
Completely jailed in public.
Yes.
And your case takes 3 months before you take plea. And then after you take plea again, before the case proper comes to court, another 3 months. Is this fair?
You've already begun. No, that's not fair. But I mean, you can imagine that, looking at, and I go back to what President Uhuru said when he talked about us believing in the process. And it's a process that we have for where we take for such things to then be carried out. And we, as a government and officials, believe in this process. Now, you can imagine also what that does to an individual who says that obviously I am not free per se, because I come back after 3 months, I come back yet again after another 3 months. My friend, you will not sit in that office again.
How does this work out when you then have a situation where the judiciary complains and says the ability for us to manage our work depends on the money we get? And then you're told 50% of your budget has been slashed. You then have to ask, what on earth is going on here?
Yeah.
Because if the state genuinely wanted cases prosecuted, you would assume that's the one department that they would not. Yes, they would actually look for resources elsewhere and give them to ensure these things get done.
This thing done so that we can save this money that has been stolen over time.
Yes. But if you don't
recover this money,
recover it,
yes.
Then we can just give it back to the judiciary and run smoothly.
Yes.
Because we can see, and it is clear that when they're serious about getting something done, they can actually do it.
It's 7:15. Good morning. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. 0719 012 600.
96.1 Spice FM. Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So the governor is shortly to be taken to court. This is at the Milimani Law Courts. And of course, to face graft charges. How many counts again? 8. 8 counts, ranging from abuse of office to acquiring property and procedurally to money laundering. All of them. And of course, we expect to see a bit of drama from supporters of Mike Mbuvi Sonko. Now, this morning, of course, I'm saying that we should just look at what's happened to Nairobi since the election. We had a deputy governor who resigned. We have not had a deputy governor replacement since then. The governor has been playing kind of a public poker on this, saying, I've nominated Miguna, who is in Canada. And then the next thing he posts names on social media saying, you guys vote who you think should be your new deputy governor. Of course, he hasn't nominated anybody. The county assembly itself has not been fully functional. The speaker has been in and out of office, being kicked out by rival factions of the ruling coalition, Jubilee Party, rather. Now we have issues with the MCAs. We have issues in the county executive. We have CEC's ministers, about 6 ministers not in office. We have chief officers who are also thoroughly intimidated. We have heads of departments who have been suspended.
They've been functional, all right. It's just that they've been functional without the speaker. Believe me, the assemblies can function without the speaker. There'll be an acting speaker, and life will go on. Kisumu, for instance, had their speaker thrown out.
Yes.
He had similar charges that are not dissimilar to the one that Sonko is facing.
Yep.
These assemblies function. What we are witnessing, this issue of Elachi, in, out, then Mike Mbuvi, Sonko, they're not unconnected.
No, they aren't. They're not unconnected. But again, what we see with the city that has the profile of Nairobi, we're not going to have seen something like this before, especially when you're looking at, the kind of profile that Nairobi does have. Just think about it. The leader of a city which represents a nation, which represents a region, then having been removed because of 1, 2, 3, up until 8.
Yeah.
Gunshot
to the county assembly.
It's not a small thing.
It's a big thing.
And it's quite, if you want to think about it in terms of your world profile, it is actually quite embarrassing that we have to get to that point. And people who sit with you in the government are the one, and when I say people who sit with you in the government, the Director of Public Prosecutions is the one who must raise a finger and say, look, on this 1, 2, 3 till 8, the other thing, we cannot allow it to happen, because we're actually trying to safeguard the people for whom we are working in the first place. And if they don't trust you, then it is my duty to then make sure that you are then brought to book. And I have enough evidence to say that you have actually failed in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are the ones I choose to bring forward because I have overwhelming evidence that shows that you have actually let down your people by doing these things. And like I said, this is not something you cook in the back kitchen. This is something that you see. You've been able to gather evidence. You've spoken to people. There are records or no records. It is clear. For Nairobi, that's why we see it happening with all the flair that we see it happening. And flair in this case is not necessarily a good thing. But that's why we see it happening to the level that we see what we see now.
Dissolve the entire county government.
Take it apart. It's not
completely
working. I agree 100%.
Before we get to a point
where,
for it to be run under our ministry, we have to have a constitutional, referendum on this, right? Before we get into a referendum, why don't we just have a fresh election for Nairobi? Go to all the 77 wards, elect new MCAs, or you can re-elect those that you feel are performing, and also elect a governor.
Right. And
this
then,
particular governor, once he takes a plea in court, then he's not eligible to vie in this particular election.
It's interesting that you just mentioned 77 wards. Take me to a ward, or maybe take us to one ward where we see an MCA expending his or her duties in stellar fashion, in a way that
people feel satisfied.
Oh,
absolutely. This is what we elected you to represent us.
It is sad that, again, in a capital city, we would be at pains to find one. right? So across the way we talked about the fact the other day that storms, rain is beating this country from every corner. If you look at Nairobi as well, it's raining issues. The issues that you've been mentioning, that you've been ticking off your fingers just now, Eric, it's across the city. Everywhere you look, every sector within which you look, we have these issues, and it's pouring, it's raining down. So how do we rebuild? You don't take off a few levels. No, you go down to the very bottom and you say, how far is the rot? Remove it all and let's start again. Let's start again and then deal with all these other cases and corruption and allegations. Deal with that while we build from the beginning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Reset.
Absolutely.
From the very beginning.
You can't have this kind of thing. And people we want to laugh it off and say, no big deal, he'll go to court with Lex. No. This is the place now whereby you do reset and say, okay, folks, we need to actually change the way in which things are done. And we keep saying that we're trying to move forward, we're trying to do better. You want to know how? This is how.
What if then we just, just let it play out?
Well, let it
as
play
it would
out
be.
To the detriment and the sacrifice of
If you were to listen to what the Senate is saying, that, in the absence of a governor from accessing office, he can still run this county from Moore Hills.
And? He
can still continue discharging his functions as governor from Moore Hills. If we were to look at what the Senate Deputy Speaker was saying. He does not have to go to City Hall where
he's not been anyway.
Yeah, that's a scene of crime, if you want to call it that way. He can still operate from Moore Hills or from Upper Hill or from Runda, any of his homes. He can even take up, he can even take up residence at the Intercontinental, which is just up the road.
There's an aspect of populism that I want to bring to the discussion. It's called victimhood. Sonko is actually a victim, in my opinion. Among other things, he's a victim of his circumstances. Let me explain what I mean. You're a first-time MP. First time you tried to be. He hadn't tried before. Senator, first time. Governor.
Big numbers.
All huge. And you're always defying odds. Remember, the person he beat when he became MP was somebody equally popular in that particular place, equally. Yep. But Sonko represented a new generation of populism that perhaps, and it hasn't been fully understood. Then he became senator against all odds. Then he became governor against even greater odds. Now, there's the God complex I spoke of that someone feels they're invincible. Someone becomes a victim when they are perhaps in circumstances that they don't fully understand and fully comprehend, and they then respond to the circumstances. I'm not giving a psychological description. I'm actually giving anecdotal description of what we have here. Okay? So he becomes a target. That's how he becomes a victim. He becomes a target of forces that he himself can't really genuinely comprehend. People who are older, have even had experience in government, have understood this thing, have had problems being governors. And that is of whichever county it is where they come from. Now, with that background, you're then thrown in to this situation where you're the governor of the city of Nairobi. Being a senator, all you do is you attend the upper house and you have debates. But you're now, as an MP, you attend the house, you create laws, you do what they're supposed to do. You're then put in a position that you have to manage things. This is one of the reasons why they wanted someone like Igathe to be his deputy, because this man was he was a corporate figure who understood things like administration and management. That's what he did. And he had risen to the highest levels of this thing.
Yeah.
When such a person is faced with the duties and functions of the office, he is going to use what he has at his disposal.
Yeah.
And in this case, you will find that is a bit wanting because he is capable of maneuvering, he's capable of running around. There are things he's capable of doing. But for this particular job, it appears it isn't enough. And why do I say again that he's a victim? You see, when you then respond to a situation such as the one he finds himself in the best way that you think you know how, and it falls short, it means that even the capacity to understand that such a position requires advisors. The presidency has advisors. He is the governor of a county. He's the boss of the county.
He needs people around him to actually be able to get the job done.
Forget the people he employs as ministers. Not those. There are people whose roles are just advisors. The title of the job is advisors. And anyone who is in a position of leadership, you'd better have advisors. Because the truth of the matter is, you can never see around every corner. In fact, you can't.
Okay, so he's
also
clearly
the
in over his
quality of
head.
advisors matters.
Matters. Clearly, he's in over his head. But let's just operate in a world where these allegations are true. Because, like we said, innocent until proven guilty. So now if we operate in a world where these allegations are true, then even if he's a victim, in over his head, does that then give you the right
Does
to
it justify
steal?
anything?
Does it justify any of these allegations?
It doesn't justify. I'm explaining it. I'm not justifying it. You can accuse someone of doing
This
wrong.
thing became just too much.
Yes,
too much
yes,
too soon.
Yes,
Look,
you can
man.
accuse someone of doing something wrong, but he's doing what he knows how to do in the best way he does under these circumstances. But unfortunately, those circumstances are beyond the abilities that he has acquired at the time. It's unfortunate, but it's just the simple reality.
So he was not the man for the job?
He was not the man for this particular job.
Even the previous one.
Senator.
Yeah.
Senator.
Even that previous one.
No.
No.
He was not
Sorry.
the man for the job.
He was perfect for that job.
No way.
Someone who goes to represent people
And just agitate in terms of conversation, yes, or debate.
Chamber where you just talk. Perfect.
No way. No way, man.
Okay, what do senators do apart from talking and calling governors to answer questions and questions which you know very well, even at the end of
at
the
committee
questions,
level.
nothing will happen.
But at that point also, can you speak of any kind of motion that he moved in
You are
in
going
Senate?
to have difficulties attributing motions to the bulk of the people in that particular parliament or Senate. So choose another query.
No, this particular one. I'm talking about the centrality of Nairobi, the importance
Well,
of Nairobi.
I don't
senator
even know
who
of
makes
anyone
a
who's
lot
in the
of
Senate
sense.
who's contributed anything significant. Do you?
So what can we see that senators have done that we can say, because of their contribution, we've actually seen a change? Are we at pains to find something like that as well? And I think, unfortunately, the answer would be yes.
No, we are not. Let me just read the charges that the governor of Nairobi is facing. He's arrived at the Milimani Law Courts.
So
He's
there's
just
more
been
than
moved
8?
from EACC.
It's a book.
Taken there. There are 8 charges. Conspiracy to commit an offence of corruption, willful failure to comply with the law, conflict of interest, absence of office, contrary to Section 40, abuse of office rather, unlawful acquisition of public property, deceiving principle, contrary to Section 14, as read that of the Anti-Corruption Crimes Act, money laundering, acquisition of proceeds of crime, 8 counts that Mike Movisonko will be facing. And let's see what happens.
Well, I
with
think
that.
the police
I
wanted
want
to
to
level
read-
a few more
Yes.
against him as well.
They can, but
You
let
don't
me
read the functions of
read.
Senate.
No. Forget Senate. I'll read definition just so that you understand why I'm calling him that. It's a person who is deceived or cheated by his or her own emotions or ignorance, by the dishonesty of others, or by some impersonal agency, a victim of misplaced confidence, a victim of a swindler, a victim of an optical illusion.
Oh, I like that last one. Optical illusion.
Says a victim of a swindler
The situation swindled him.
and a
He
victim of an optical illusion.
He
believed
viewed that this position
Was like this.
Yes, and it's
Actually
not
turned
that
out to
at
be
all.
something totally different.
Now you can imagine he viewed that he could be president. He
He
views
could, he could very well be.
if he survives this one particularly.
He will survive it.
Watch out.
He will survive it.
The conversation continues on Facebook, Spice FM KE, and also on Twitter at Spice FM KE. Our hashtag is The Situation Room. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Of course, we've been discussing the plight of Nairobi City County Government. We've seen that the governor has arrived at the Milimani Law Courts. We'll see what happens after that. We'll be keeping you updated as we progress with the conversations. Good morning. This is Spice FM. It's 8 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything I spice.
All right.
it down.
Trying to get into the city again, we do have the challenge that we had seen earlier. The current situation from the T-Mall roundabout to the Madaraka roundabout is taking about an hour for people to get over a distance that would normally take 10 minutes this morning. The anti-riot police on Outer Ring Road at the Riverside Kiamaiko area, and that is because we've seen some fires being put on the road, or rather being set because of angry residents over the poor road situation. So there's traffic in both directions on that that particular road. All right, Mombasa Road, the traffic is still as far as Syokimau. It's not moving. It really is bumper to bumper. All right, a concrete pole has fallen on Gong Road. It's leaning dangerously, rather has been left dangerously on the road, and that is causing traffic as well. Ngong Road is not so bad, but it's raining and it's terrible, so people need to move a little bit slower in order to be able to be safe. Juja Road is traffic on both sides. It's a typical Monday morning. Joined with the rain, it is quite terrible. Let's see what it looks like in a short while, but you're going to have to be patient, folks. 0719 012 600.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Nyeri Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's at 2 minutes past 8 o'clock. Good morning. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We're broadcasting from Nairobi to Malindi on 97.7. We are in Nyeri 90.9, Eldoret 96.7, Nakuru 96.0, Kisumu 102.5, Mombasa 87.9. We live stream on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on our website www.spicefm.co.ke. Join the conversation on Twitter. Tag us at Spice FM KE. And the hashtag is The Situation Room. We'll keep you abreast of what's happening at the Milimani Law Courts as we progress with these conversations. Of course, we know now that the governor of Nairobi has arrived there. He'll, of course, be facing a number of charges, 8 counts, or relating to corruption and abuse of office. Let's talk about Africa and the demographic dividend.
Right, so the Kusi Ideas Festival is taking place in Kigali, has started actually over the last 24 hours, and there's a clarion call for leaders across Africa to come together as far as accelerating Africa into the future. And the question has been, what the Africa that we want, do we want it to look like? And of course, the calls have been that Africa needs to work together to achieve progress. Youth have been told that you have everything that you need. The leaders have been told to ensure that the laws serve the people. The African Continent Free Trade Area Agreement, which was signed into law which was ratified actually by a number of African leaders, has been in effect for some time. But this is what is seen that will actually fast track the development of most countries on the continent. There has been talk of equal access to opportunities, and saying also that African leaders must champion equal success, or rather equal access to opportunities for all. The biggest equalizer, of course, having been called education. It is not just the number of children being sent to school, but the learning outcomes. And of course, the promise has been given by the former president of the African Development Bank, Dr. Donald Kiberuka, that the next 60 years are going to be different from what the last 60 years were, and basically saying that the market is different. How to turn the continent's population explosion into an economic boom, according to the chief customer officer of Safaricom. The challenge is how we create opportunities for the youth. So the youth are at the forefront of development, but I'm saying that there are very many things that stand in the way of doing this. We have youth, we have the numbers, we have the opportunities, but if we don't take care of some of the issues, all of this again is going to end in talk.
What issues are these?
Well, I mean, we look at the debts and the debt that we talk about in Kenya that we see, for example, for countries, even if you want to move forward when it comes to economics, taking steps in the future, if you're not able to pay your debts, if you're not able to at least keep those running, how are you going to move forward when it comes to economic progress? We talk about opportunities for young people. And, we've had many people talk over and over again. Sylvia Mulunge herself, we've gone as far as even as high up as President Paul Kagame, who said, look, it's in your hands, the youth. You have everything that you need. Honorable Raila Odinga was on that panel yesterday, and he talked about the fact that, yes, the youth are the ones who are going to drive our economies. And even for us coming together, it is them who are going to cement this. But if there's no political will, which we've cried about time and time and time again, at the very heart of each government, then it will be very difficult for you to give a public outcome of something that you've not been able to weave together internally. And again, we've seen examples of how countries have been able to lift themselves out of poverty because of the fact that they worked from within. So if individual countries don't work inside with what they have and what they're able to do, it's going to be very difficult to come together and form an Africa that looks all wonderful after 60 years. If a lot of countries have had independence for 40, 50 years now on the continent, and in terms of how we've been able to progress, we're at pains to find that we've moved well ahead of where we actually should be.
So this idea is being very optimistic.
I think it's being very,
Right.
very optimistic.
But also, you are filled with pessimism this morning. I think that you need to get into the spirit of what is happening. The spirit of what is happening is, yes, we have made a couple of mistakes. We've made many mistakes. We have, in many cases, seen opportunities, but not seized those opportunities. In some cases, not even seen the opportunities. But from this point on, we are all, tuned to the fact that we have the potential. We're all tuned to the fact that we have a future that is brighter than everybody else's. That we can actually, take this and take charge of ourselves.
One of the biggest
This is optimism.
One of the biggest messages that came out last night is that African leaders need to work together. Now, you look at the indicators of
Work
how
together. How?
work together
What
to
is work
come
together?
will come together. These initiatives on trade, for example, make agreements that would benefit countries across board. But even leaders within our countries, are we able to work together for the common good of the nation? As we are, before we now want to go outside and do what it is that seems so impossible. And we say that because Africa is the largest, Africa is the richest when it comes to natural resources, and when it comes to people as a resources, again, the richest. But even that cohesion, we are not able to do it within country specific before we then now move to the continent level. And I'm saying that before we jump or run or skip, let us walk. And a lot of that action needs to happen within.
But maybe that's why these conversations are necessary.
I think the conversation is necessary, but also we have to sprinkle a dab of reality in terms of what is happening.
We do, but conversations tend to lead the way to action, wouldn't you say? Just like thought leads the way to talk. If people can't even get together to talk, then we have a problem. But at least if they're getting together to talk, it's a good beginning. In talking is where you share ideas. You share successes, you share failures. A way forward, you share examples. The talk is important. Why do you have an entire body called the UN? People go to talk there.
People do go to
that's what they do. They go and talk there.
shop.
Number one parliament of the world. It's called the UN. You go talk there, and then when people talk, then you decide on the path to follow.
Yeah, but you also see that a lot of from that talk, sometimes you will see those who come back to the talk and have actually gone and implemented things that actually makes a difference when it comes to their countries. And if you want to again give the example of Rwanda, it's not the first conference or the first coming together in terms of ideas, but look at what they've been able to do in a very short period of time and make decisions about how they're going to go ahead and do this. ECT gives the example all the time about the Abuja Declaration in terms of what people decided, in terms of what they were going to do. Something as simple as saying that 15% of your budget needs to go towards research. If anything, we've gone down the rabbit hole. We've gone even further, and we've not dedicated the amounts that we said. Something like, I am going to do this.
For
We
health
have all
of our
agreed.
people.
We've come together. All countries agreed. We are going to do this for the betterment of our people. Even that,
Yes.
we've not been able to do.
The beauty of the decision is that at least you have a benchmark.
To say on this you failed.
Yes.
Yes, because
You
in
can
the
refer
absence
to something.
Yes, if we didn't have that discussion, there would be no reference point, would they? So, in a sense, it may seem futile, but it actually isn't. I'm going to give a facetious example. It's like when you talk to a child. They will sit, they will listen, child, 5 years under, even up to 10, they will listen obediently. And then they'll go and they'll proceed to do the very thing you told them
Opposite.
not to. Now, did they hear you or did they understand you? I think both. But they also have an idea of what they would like to do. We carry on that particular perspective into adulthood. It's a gathering of leaders. Of course I will go so that I can sit, talk, be heard. But when it comes to implementation, I will have this beautiful discussion in Brussels, or I will have it in Geneva or New York, or even now Rwanda. Then I come back to Kenya and I'm faced with the realities of Kenya. And I suddenly realize...
all those nice things that I said, Omo.
Yes. To begin with, I may have an election round the corner. Am I going to ensure I get re-elected, or am I going to apply the Abuja Declaration? Am I going to ensure that certain cronies of mine don't face certain predicaments that are facing them because of their misdeeds? There are realities that all these leaders face when they go back.
Yeah.
So how do they align their reality to this? The only time they would apply it is if their staying in power was directly related to that particular declaration.
Yes. If you're going to, if it promises you the stay in power, then oh my goodness,
you'd
you
apply
will
it
do it
quickly,
1,
quickly.
2,
But you know,
3.
somebody you'd assume that would actually help you to stay in power.
You
If
would assume
actually
that's
spent
how people
money
think.
on healthcare, you'd assume that people would look and see, well, you've built us hospitals, you've actually brought us healthcare, access to healthcare. If you went into the Maputo Declaration and actually increased your budget on food security, you'd assume that because of that, people would actually vote you back in. That's not why they do that. They just want to kill.
Actually, if we talk about the politicians in this country, they have helped condition the voter to look at life in a particular way. And they themselves, the politicians, have now become the victims of their own production. You tell people things, they then come to a certain conclusion that our politicians, for instance, will lie to us.
Yeah.
It's a given.
But that's what people think. Unfortunately, that is the thought that many people have across the
There's
country
ample evidence
as to why they should believe this.
Yes. Why is it that they don't feel that doctors will lie to them? Why is it that they don't feel teachers will lie to them? And these are people we come across more than we come across our politicians. So why is it that? It's because their pronouncements and their deeds are usually at opposing sides. And it happens so often, you have no option but to believe what you see. Now, one of the things that is argued about philosophers who talk about politics, they tell you that the one thing a politician wants you to do, they want you to divorce yourself from the reality of what you're seeing and to believe that it is not so.
This is the thing that I also wonder. The leaders that we see sitting at the Kusi Festival, for example, they know what the reality is. They are aware, because you can't tell me that because once you enter government, then you have some blinders on as to what the reality is.
You're actually more open to the reality. You
Exactly.
see the realities
You've seen
from
the realities.
a better lens.
This is where we see them from. So for you to then go and sit here and talk about all these things in the fanciful, actually it bothers me, because then I wonder, these next 60 years that we're talking about for Africa, will we get there?
We could, but
the time
listen,
will pass, but will we
ask
achieve?
yourself, as Africans, how do we view things? Let's start, for instance, with the way we talk to our children. How many of us tell our children we don't have money? No, say I actually don't have it. Yes. Or talk about money openly. If you think, I'm referring to our mindset, you take that mindset when you're dealing with the public. Now, especially if they see you as someone who's in a position of authority, how do people in authority in an African setting respond to those who they feel understand this position and they owe a duty to? What is our normal response? Do we actually tell them the truth?
You can't tell them the truth.
You
You
can't tell them the
cannot.
truth, no.
See?
You
That's
can't
the
tell
thing.
them what it really
And I'm
is
saying
really happening.
you actually can.
Yes,
you-
I'm saying
yes.
you actually gain a level
You
of
can.
strength.
What they argue is that you will not get voted in. Now, the response should be, then let it be so. We have only one example in this country of a governor who decided, I am not giving in to this blackmail that I'm seeing, I'm being put to. Let us go to another vote. Let's go back to an election. He put it to the test and he was...
Won.
Exactly. So you actually can. But the narrative that has held sway and for the longest time is that you have to tell people things that you think will make them happy or that will
You've
make
got to continuously sell hope. You've got to remember that, by the way, CT.
Eric has just told us you have to continuously lie.
Yeah,
keep
sell
lying.
hope.
But you think
Because
people
that's
people
what-
are not stupid.
They know.
They know
They
that
may
you
not
are
be strict.
lying.
Even when they're asking you for these things, they know that you don't have it. All right?
So tell them you don't have it.
They know it already.
No.
You've got to show them that, it's not today, but, we are working towards
no,
being
but
able
you
to actually
continue
provide
to lie
it.
to them that perhaps it will come tomorrow. And that's the thing about people who are teetering on the edge where they've almost lost everything that they could believe in. And then you come and feed them just a little bit more and tell them, you
You
know what,
reinforce
it's
it.
possible that something could come tomorrow. Of course, that person is going to put you back in because
You
you've
give
played
them
on
that
their psyche.
negativity.
You
What
played
happens
on
to
their
them?
psyche to the point whereby they believe that, all right, tomorrow could be better. And what we are saying is at this point, tell it as it is. This
No,
is
no,
it.
no, no.
This
Sometimes-
is where we are.
Oh.
This is where we are. Be
the other day-
real.
the other day when we were talking about, the cases of suicide and violence that are increasing in the country, right? And, we almost came to a consensus that the economic situation is also a contributing factor. Even the BBI actually recognized that and said we have very many cases of people feeling completely, weak and unable. This is because of facing the reality.
Do you think
When you have
that
this constant conversation of, we have borrowed so much, the amount of money that we owe China, we have to pay debt, and you're thinking, my God, I have to pay China. I can't even afford my own meals on
Eric,
a continuous basis. You're seeing people being taken to court.
That's
Why
great.
have-
Okay,
are
look
they
at
being
the
taken to
examples
court?
that we continue to give around the continent. Do you think, how did Rwanda build? Because they were at nothing. There is nobody who could have been cheated to say, no, we were at zero. And there is something about starting at zero that allows you to build it into something that you never want to go to again. Into the opposite of what you would never want to go to again. So once this is the reality. This is where we are. This is where we are moving. Do you give me your trust that I will be able to build something from it? That's why we see Rwanda where it is today, that people continue to use her as an example of where we should be. This was the reason for this Kusi festival, for example. Bring it to Rwanda so that people can see the possibilities that could be there for Africa. But do we have another one?
But, Eric, for the longest time, we were an example for very many African nations.
Yes.
We, here
Yes,
in Kenya.
Yes.
In fact, we still are.
I was about to tell you that.
No, I start with...
and then are.
Yes, we still are. But instead of sitting on our laurels, we could be better. One of the reasons why, for instance, you're talking about the governor of Nairobi. If you look clearly at the supporters he has, those people fall under the broad category. We're talking about power, principles of power. We'll talk about power later on. But it's something called the principles of least interest. Now, these are people who don't have very much to lose.
They don't.
Now, hope for them is embodied in this individual. So when you jail the individual, you're not jailing the individual, you're jailing their hope. Yes. So because of what he represents, he has an entire community of people captive. Because of that, he represents it. And he has demonstrated enough times that he has their interest at heart.
And if you
Yes.
want to give examples, you had people who stayed in hospital because they couldn't pay their bills. He comes, clears that bill. You had people who needed jobs whereby they needed just 500 shillings a day. He came, gave them jobs where he paid them 1,000.
Yep.
He had people who
couldn't bury their own and could transport them up country. He came
gave
for
them
that,
that
gave them
transport.
and enabled them to go.
People who couldn't go to school, set up bursaries for them and said, okay, here's money, go to school. So you see, not that I will come and do, so that you give people some 3 months where they're hanging on to you, but he did.
That's a fundamental difference, really.
So you come tomorrow, this guy comes and tells you, give me an hour. What do you think you're going to do in terms of make a decision? The same concept happens whereby you keep somebody dangling on a thread. It will be better. We will do. We will
But
do. So you
that's
string
what
somebody
you
along.
just described about the governor. That's exactly what he does.
No.
No.
He
In this case, he
sorts
would
your
do.
immediate. He sorts
He
your
would
immediate
do.
needs.
Eric,
Not
it
I am
it
going
may
to
be
do, he
immediate,
did.
but it's okay.
And that's
These
what our leaders
people-
do. That's what
Eric,
when I was talking about selling hope. That's what they do.
Eric, these people...
They give you that handout,
Eric.
and then they promise you that things are gonna look better. They can't come and tell you, "I'm not going to." You see,
But-
that's what you're saying. I'm not going to give you anything. No, they
Eric,
give you what they have.
Eric, there's a fundamental difference here. What the governor of Nairobi has been doing, I don't know of any other politicians who's been able to do what he's doing. In all honesty, they just talk and do very little. If you're an MP and you have a CDF, what is to stop you from explaining to your constituents what you have? Just saying, this is the money we have.
This is what
I
we
say
have.
this because I actually know of an MP who did that. I know. Not that I think of, I know. Because that's all he did. They had councillors. He'd call in the councillors. He'd tell them this is the money we have received. But prior to that, they made sure they knew what each particular ward required. And there were accounts. And the money was given for those projects. All he did was ensure that those projects were done. Mm-hmm. He told them. So when you come and say, look, this is the bursary that was given to your area for X, he even devolved that. So people knew, if you want a bursary, this is what you do. This is where you go.
That's Otichilo.
No, Otichilo is one.
The governor.
This is called Engineer Nyamunga.
Engineer Nyamunga.
Of Nyando.
Engineer Nyamunga and the late Ken Okoth, same was up, right? Looking at the money, looking at the needs and saying, this is what we need to do.
Yes.
Same was up. Now, the governor of Nairobi and the other leaders that we're talking about also, same was up. This is, I give you something now as I'm selling you hope.
What are you saying?
No.
This is
the governor of Nairobi does a lot
same
more
with
than
that
just
group.
that. No. The governor
I
of
give
Nairobi
you
has
something.
done
What
a
is,
lot
what
more
is your
than
immediate
that.
need?
I
Your
know.
immediate need is to go back home because you
isn't
require
immediate.
medical.
It is a problem.
You need to sort out your medical bill today. I sort it out
It isn't
today.
immediate. Immediate is giving you food on a daily basis. That's immediate.
That's immediate.
But someone has had a problem, they've done a damage, they can't solve it. He comes and helps. You know, it isn't as though
He becomes
you,
the
you're
savior
going to
for
die
the
twice.
occasion.
No, it's
Yeah.
and why it matters, it isn't an individual's problem. By the time someone is stuck in hospital, it's a community problem.
True.
So he solves the problem for that community. But it's not as though they're going to die every day. But they needed help and they clearly couldn't get it.
At that time, you had people who
it's
were in
different.
hospital for
This
6
isn't
months
a handout.
and they were well.
This isn't a handout.
This
No.
is exactly what a handout is, CT. Come on.
it isn't.
Come on.
It isn't.
He has come out, he has sorted. So
A
one
handout-
person,
what-
one
that's
person,
not a
in the-
handout,
one
Eric.
person in the community requires urgent medical assistance. All right. The community has tried to put together some cash, and they haven't been able to meet the needs. He comes in, he gives them the money.
So it's called support, Chief.
He supports.
Why is it? And you're calling it a handout? How?
He supports them with his handout of cash, right? Gives them the cash for this one particular person. Has he sorted out the issue?
He has, but the person has money to
issue
go to
is sorted.
hospital.
The bigger issue for the community in terms of medical. So the next person who needs this medical care, what do they need to do?
But Eric,
come back to the same
the
person
reason why
or
that
more.
thing arose is because that particular help was not available probably locally, or if it was,
At
it
that
was beyond
time.
their means. And it wasn't just for that particular individual. There are others who had similar problems, but they were able to meet the cost. If somebody, that's not his job. The facilities exist. They just can't afford it. It's not that they don't exist.
No, the facilities don't exist.
Oh no, hospitals do
Hospitals
exist.
No,
exist.
no. The facilities of the level that this particular person needs,
But
they don't exist.
But Eric, people who can afford it take themselves.
Those are private.
No.
Now, we
The
We're talking about
individuals-
public-
no.
Don't do a Jerry on this one.
We're talking about
and change the topic.
public
okay?
facilities.
But
public
the reason why
facilities.
people go abroad. You talk about public hospitals.
Yes.
Clearly, you don't know much about our public hospitals.
I do know a lot about our public
Our
hospitals.
public hospitals have the capacity that even many private hospitals don't have.
Yes, but where are they?
I don't know how to answer that question.
No, where are the
Because I
hospitals?
don't
From-
even understand
you're
the
saying
question.
there are no hospitals.
From primary healthcare, dispensaries. Tell me of those dispensaries that actually have that capacity you're
They
talking about.
do exist, Eric, but the reason why they have a problem is not because of their existence. We are going to take us down the rabbit hole of the government and what they should do.
In terms of capacity,
And
we
that-
had a Nyeri deputy governor here the
Let's
other
go
day.
down that
And
ra-
what did she tell us? She told us that these facilities exist. One of the major problems that they had as a
Personnel.
government is the personnel.
Exactly. Number
So
one.
now,
Number two.
It's not that you don't
Number
have.
two,
You
they don't
have
have power, so they can't even keep medicine.
No,
Number
some-
three, they don't even have the
some of
medicine.
them.
some.
Some of them.
Nairobi,
In the
no.
case of Nairobi, it's the same.
No,
Actually,
no,
go to Nairobi.
no.
Go to the public dispensaries
Tell me
in
which
Nairobi.
dispensary in Nairobi doesn't have power. Just
It's not
one.
about power. It's about now the personnel. It's
Oh,
about
you've changed from power to personnel. But personnel,
Nyeri
we
was
agreed,
power.
Eric. We agreed that they have a problem with personnel.
And that's what I'm saying. The
Yes.
job of a governor is to ensure that this public facility called a dispensary is actually functioning. Right? It's functioning. And that people who need access to this facility can access it. How many facilities do we have? How many
Eric,
new dispensaries have we built in Nairobi?
Eric,
The
we-
only
we-
dispensaries we have in Nairobi were built in the 80s.
Eric,
last ones.
Eric.
Now,
Eric.
your job as a governor is to ensure that you have a new facility.
what you're
coming
saying
up.
is that somebody-
when you give somebody cash handouts that because they went to Nini, they had spent time in Mama Lucy, they spent so long in Mama Lucy, then they went up from Mama Lucy, they went to KNH, and there are other people who still need
So what
these
should
facilities.
if
But
an
you know-
appeal comes to him as a governor, what should he do then?
Now, like, for example, the patients that he went to remove from Pumwani in maternity hospital, for example, they were well. Their children were actually growing in those hospitals, but they could not afford the service. They had been treated. So it was not about the capacity of that hospital to treat them. It was about their inability to pay.
That's it.
So he came and said, okay, all of
So
these
what was
bills
he to
from
do?
this date to this date, clear, go home.
Yes.
You see,
How is that
it
a
was not
handout?
about, they were well. They were no longer being treated, but they stayed there
They couldn't
because they were
leave
not
because they
able
were
to
being
pay.
held hostage.
That's why they were being held. And
Yes.
he said, this thing of keeping people, in fact, those were his words, this thing of keeping people hostage within the hospital because they're not able to pay, come and go. Now, whether he was going
If
to
the
then
issue-
provide free maternity care, which an initiative actually began, that's something totally different.
The initiative of free maternity had actually started even before Mike Sonko became governor of Nairobi. If the issue of Pumwani was only about people being stuck there because of payment of their fees, then Governor Sonko would not have spent so much money trying to rehabilitate Pumwani. There was the issue of the structural management
Eric, Nairobi
of Pumwani.
Hospital offers probably some of the best care, presumably, arguably, in the country. They are still upgrading. What are they upgrading for? And they're putting
more structures.
That's
They're
the
trying
point.
to get
Increasing
better.
their capacity.
Yes,
Exactly.
even if
Increasing their
Pumwani was
capacity.
good,
So the
you
issue-
make it better.
Better.
If
If it
wasn't
is
good,
better,
that's
you
why.
make it the best.
It wasn't good, and that's why he went in there and spent so much time. He spent so much time and money because it wasn't good. Look, the point I'm trying to make here is, we're talking about the issue of handouts versus, selling hope and politicians and selling hope and why they need to do that all the time. That's exactly what we see these politicians doing. When they give you this handout now for today, they're selling hope, yet they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is they're supposed to be ensuring that the facilities work. The facilities that you actually pay taxes for, the facilities that you've actually elected them so that they can go and ensure that they're working, they're not working.
Well, if we're talking about handouts, I personally don't agree with handouts in any way, shape, or form. But when you see that something is actually done vis-a-vis the promise of something to be done, then I say that, you'd rather get it done.
You see,
as opposed to telling me something that you're going to do, but you actually never do it.
All political players, as Eric correctly puts it, give handouts. Why are they not able to achieve the sort of power that Sonko does? Why?
It's the
because
amount.
it's handout. It's just a question of handout.
It's the
Why?
amount.
No, it's not. They will even give more money.
The amount and the immediacy of it.
It's called outcome power, my friend. Because if you have a situation where people have been stuck in a certain position and they don't see any hope, or nothing seems to be done to give the impression that hope can come about, it isn't just handouts. There are physical things that must have been begun or must have been done for them to feel this guy can actually do something. Because if it's money, they were receiving money before. They were politicians before. So if it's just money, it isn't new. So what is it that the person did that others were not doing? He gave money. He had what else? You can't be that popular by just doing what everybody else is doing.
It's doing.
No.
There's obviously
Because
something
if that is the
did
case, then
differently.
everybody else who gives money would be popular.
There you go. And if we use that and now try to extrapolate to what's happening in Rwanda, for example, what is it that Rwanda has been able to do that so now they've been labeled as the darling of development on the continent? There's something that they have done which nobody else has done to give them the status that they have received over time. There's something that they've been deliberate with. There are decisions that they made that they said we are going to do this and absolutely stick with them. Obviously, there's a personality behind all of this that made sure that these things that they set out to do were actually done. And that's why we see the placeholder that they have achieved and are really seeming to stay with for such a long time. They've been able to get there because of these things that they've been able to do. But I am saying the rest of us who are just having our hands on our cheeks watching, what is it that we are not doing? So even these next 60 years, we're going to sit around again with our hands on our cheeks saying, wow, this is fantastic.
Could have been done.
It could have been done, but we just don't do it because we decide not to. And some people think that the decision is to open your mouth and say, I'm not going to. But a decision actually comes about from not doing something as well.
You know what is strange about human beings is this, a lot of our learning is not from what we hear, it's from what we
It's
actually
what we see.
Yes. Now, if you happen to be in a position of leadership and you say things and people actually see you following up with deeds, then yes, if you just follow up with deeds, then you generate trust. But
Absolutely.
if there have been more words than deeds over a period of time, then you have a situation of mistrust. And it's what we've seen playing out in the public arena. When the government arrests people, they say, but they arrest people all the time and nothing happens.
And nothing happens.
They take them to court. They take them to court, but nothing happens. Now, that's mistrust at play. When people actually get jailed, and by the way, they have been jailed. We even had the unfortunate where someone actually died in prison. The former town clerk of Nairobi, one Mr. Gakuo, I liked that man. I liked what he did to the city. The truth of the matter is this. We have far too many examples of people who say things which they never do. So that is what is considered the norm. If more people did what they say they would do, or even a portion of it, then the trust in leadership could actually be rebuilt. But unfortunately, the state and the stage as we currently have it, our politicians, we keep saying things which they have absolutely no intentions of doing.
So African leaders have keep talking about things that they do not want to implement.
They will not implement.
And so the conversation that's happening in Kigali this week, the Kusi Ideas Festival, which is talking about, looking at Africa, grabbing our opportunities and taking advantage of what we have in terms of resources, in terms of even human resource, mineral resources, natural resources. What are we doing about that? The leaders are saying it's our turn. Let's make sure that we capitalize on this and change Africa for the next 60 years. Do you agree? Do you think actually that the leaders don't have the capacity or the will to do this? 0719 012 600. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads. It's been raining in Nairobi this morning. How are the roads looking? Let's find out.
.1 Spice FM. Kisi. Traffic.
From Nairobi West to Thika Road to Kasarani Mwiki Road. I mean, the Tasia tragedy also is giving us some major traffic as cars are slowing down around that area to see what is going on. Impunity at its best taking place on Gandhi Avenue in Nairobi West. And we see that traffic is not moving at all on Langata Road towards town, starting at the Langata Cemetery. And so there's traffic and it is gridlocked, a bumper to bumper parking lot situation. I don't know how many more adjectives I can use for that, but that's what we see. It is not moving on Mombasa Road from Syokimau. When you get past the GM, it is moving a little bit better, but not as much. All right, Ngong Road, there are fires on the road just near Ndemi Road at the turnoff, and that is blocking traffic flow all the way to town. So we have many things going on this morning all over the roads, and that is being compounded by the rain that is coming down. It's a typical Monday morning on your roads today. You're going to have to be patient. You get there eventually. Let us know if there's any alternative that you see trying to get people moving. The number to call is 0719 012 600. Give us a shout and we'll keep you moving this morning.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The purpose of reform is mainly to have effective African tool, one that is accounting to the people of Africa. And that will enable us achieve a number of things, including one of the things we have already started, that is African continental trade area. We have created that. There's an agreement around it. And this means a lot of things. It's not just about trade. It's about integration. It's about intra-African trade. How countries of our continent, our people, trade with one another.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Well, that's listening to the words of Paul Kagame there when they opened up the sessions yesterday at the Kusi Ideas Festival happening in Kigali, Rwanda, where a number of leaders from around the continent have come together to talk about the Africa that we need in the next 60 years, or the Africa that we would all like to see by the time the next 6 decades roll around. And we should see something totally different, whereby we're trading amongst ourselves as nations and saying we need to have the agreement on the table whereby a conducive environment is created for young people, for example, to do business. Or even when we're talking about education, make sure that, those who go into school, come out of school with skills, but at the same time, then is the environment conducive, creating the jobs that they need to make sure that the education that they have now gotten is actually put to use. And this is a conversation that is happening around the continent as well. We've talked about that here many times. But really, it's the Africa that we want, because what you want is great. I mean, I want a pony and $5 million, but when we look at it, is it something that is achievable by just talking?
Pony,
horse,
and $5 million.
I was wondering, why didn't you talk about a herd of cattle and maybe $50 million or euros? But anyway, pony for you,
yeah,
and
thanks.
$5 million for you. You see, what you've seen exhibited in Rwanda is the prerogative of power, where an individual is in a position of authority where they can actually, by will, by action, and even by deed, change the lives of others who have less power. Now, it works well when it is used to help people's lives. But in the negative, which is what, unfortunately, most African leaders have represented, it can have catastrophic results. Ask again, when a leader has the influence of convincing or the influence of changing his people, what you're discussing is one who has actually enabled them. There are those who will argue other and say he hasn't. But when you have an economy that is running, people are attracted to it.
Yes.
Businesses come. He has enabled his people, but he has used that power prerogative well. When it is used unwell, then it means you then make decisions, because a person who has that prerogative can make decisions as they see well. One of the things they do is they break norms. Now, the breaking of norms is what now our current governor of Nairobi is being accused of, because he has gone against many conventions. But remember, when one talks about fighting cartel, this is now Kenya. You can rest assured that he probably also had his own cartels.
Right. This is the thing.
Yes.
And then you pull the wool over your eyes in terms of what he's fighting out there, but that's actually what you see he has behind
they
him.
say.
Oh, he's
Right.
raised the stakes. You're paying the other guy 10 bob, I want 15.
Yes. So now you're going to have a problem there.
Exactly. I mean, even when we look at something like the debt that we see, across the continent, the debt is huge amounts. Now, we talk about this Africa Trade Agreement, which in the next, 6 decades is seen to be something that is actually going to lift the economic profile of many of the countries on this continent. But if you have things inwardly dogging you like debt, by the time you're borrowing or by the time you're trading, the money that you get from such trade, where does it go? It goes then to pay off a lot of the debt that we see ourselves in. Are we then able to make these decisions? Are we able to create these environments that are then conducive for this kind of business? Are we empowering our people? Because you can talk about trade, you can talk about international trade on the continent, but then do we have the tools?
What
to
makes
actually
you think
happen,
our
make it
leaders have
work?
any interest in empowering their people?
Well, this is one of the things that Paul
If you look
Kagame
at-
said. If you
look at
don't
the word
empower your
empowering
people,
in the broadest way, what?
this is the thing I'm
from
saying.
the actions of our leaders, do you get the impression that that this
This is leaders in Africa in general.
Yes. Do you think it's a priority?
This is why I'm
enabling their people to do the very things that they claim they're setting out to do.
This is why I'm
Today-
saying it's a lot of talk out of the side of the mouth, because you can come here and talk about all nice things sitting in Kigali there. You can talk about it very nicely, but then you say this is what we need to do, empower our people, empower the young people to make sure that they can then do this. So when we talk about international trade agreements, it's not easy to get it done if you don't have the will to put
But
the
they
power
do
in the
have the
hands of-
will. That's why they're gathering there. They actually do have the will to get it done. That's why they're talking about it. They do have the will. They're demonstrating the will. You talked about, looking at things from a certain lens until you get into power, and then you realize what the other side of the lens actually also contains. You get in there and you find all these competing interests. You find, yes, so I have these limited resources. I've got all this competition for attention. At the same time, what do I prioritize? What do I not prioritize? So some things, when it comes to now to, splitting all those resources among all those competing interests, of course, it's going to take time. The will is there. The capacity, internal capacity is there, but the resource capacity may not be there.
So do
I'm talking about, you see, now...
Kagame says, and we keep using him, he says that we as Africa, we have all that we need to make it happen. It's just like now you ask me to bake a cake. I have everything that I need to make it happen. Then I look at the ingredients and I think that they're going to throw themselves into the mixing bowl. No. You have to do something with that you have.
You have
However
everything you need to
small
make
it
it
is,
happen.
however small it is, you need to make it. But like Siti keeps saying, they've shown us over time that they're not willing to put all these ingredients in the mixing bowl and come up with something worth eating. That's unfortunate, but that's the case. Kagame said yesterday, you have everything that you need to make it happen. Look at Rwanda when they started. What did they have? They had a country that was in a shambles. But they took the little pieces and they said, with this, let's start here. Let's start to put the building blocks together. But here we are in a country with the kind of economic, with the stability that you already have. For Kenya, for example, with the relative peace that you have, there are some ingredients that you could use to go where you build then an economically viable and stable economy. But we're going in the opposite direction.
No, we're not.
Come on.
Our economy is growing.
Okay, in which direction? Sorry, Eric, but in which direction were you referring to?
Positively.
Okay.
Okay,
I have
Eric.
an instant headache.
It's growing, but
Eric,
look,
tell me, give me an example of this growth. I may have missed it. While living in Kenya, I may have missed this growth. Where is it taking place?
No, I'll broaden up the conversation. So I'll talk about, for example, when you talk about leaders coming together, how much has trade within East Africa grown? It has grown. Trade within East Africa is growing. Talking about now that intra-African trade, coming up with a trade area for Africa. It's going to open up more borders. This is what leaders are saying. Let's look inwardly and see we have the opportunity to actually develop Africa, to develop African markets, to develop trade within Africa, the African bloc, to allow people to move. And he was saying it's not just about trade. It's also about movement of people. When people are moving from one country to the next and taking their knowledge and skill from this country to the next, that is also growing the economies of Africa. This is actually also happening. This week, a leader of Ethiopia is actually going to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. Why? Because he has shown the willingness and the capacity to bring a country together, to bring people who are warring. Yes, there's still some turmoil within the country, but there's movement. We have seen it happen. So I'm just saying, yes, in the next 60 years, I look at it with that optimism of it's possible. It's possible for us to actually get there to do it. We have people who have more knowledge. We have people who are more exposed. We have people who are showing willingness. We have democracies that are also growing where leaders are being put to account on a regular basis. Unlike before, where people could, were serving foreign masters, now they're actually serving local masters.
No, Eric, we still serve foreign masters.
But increasingly,
the fundamental
local masters are growing.
They have grown, and I agree with you because if you consider the time when most African countries actually got their independence and where they're at now, much as local leaders have grown and masters, we don't have some colonialists taking advantage of us. We have our own people doing that very well for us. So
our own leaders,
our own homegrown relatives, people who come from the same neck of the woods as we do. With devolution, we've seen it very, very clearly. Because this isn't somebody else's county. It is yours. That's where you come from, and these people are yours. And the very thing that politicians who want to complain about the national government is the same thing that some of these same people who had been in national politics are now practicing now. This ability to translate whatever it is, this development talk into a reality for people, it seems to be something our leaders seem incapable of doing.
That's lovely. Translate it into a reality on the ground. Again, using the ingredients that you have. We're not asking you to create some astronomical thing out there that's mystical and people don't understand. But with what you have, these talks that you go and have, when you come back, is it something tangible that your people can actually use and say, okay, from this then we can move forward in the slightest. Look, I'd rather that they meet Kusi Festival, wherever the next one will be. I'd rather that they meet and say, you know what, of all the things that we talked about, this one is what we're able to do.
I
was really happy. Well, let me pick this call, 0719-012-600. We have Lydia on the line. Good morning, Lydia.
Good morning, Spice FM.
Good morning, Lydia.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
I wanted to contribute. Huge amounts of money was spent on medical equipment purchase and they don't have the staff to operate them. I feel if the X-ray machine, the scanning machine, etc., was supplied by a certain company, they should be given a free office to operate it at a cheaper price so that people can be cared for properly. To spend so much money and they lie idle, unused because nobody knows how to work them is very wrong. So this would be internship better than university to train people into jobs of operating machines correctly. This is how I feel it should be. And I feel we should go back to the system of East African community. Bread was 30 cents. To hire a flat, to rent a flat, it was 500 shillings. Now when politicians took over, when East African community died, politicians took over and they became the owners of everything, and then giving it to 12,000 cooperative societies, and then they, from 500 shillings, they want 500,000 shillings because they can't survive with your 500 shillings and 30 cents. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lydia.
Thank you, Lydia.
0719-012-600. Do you believe that African leaders have the capacity and the will to actually transform Africa and make Africa the best continent within the next 60 years, taking advantage of all the natural resources, the human resource that we have, taking advantage of all the inter-African markets, the big opportunities that are there? That's what President of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, was saying at Kigali yesterday at the opening of the Kusi Ideas Festival. Do you agree that with Ndu that, well, unless they sort out some of these soft issues, then we are going nowhere as Africa, as a continent? Call us in 0719-012-600. It's 8:45.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
One of the leaders who's at Kigali this week is Kenya's governor of Kisumu, Professor Peter Anyang', and he spoke as well yesterday. And I saw him, for example, mention the Kisumu port, and he was saying, look, we are now reopening the port of Kisumu after so many years of just letting it down to neglect. Yet this is one thing that can actually open up the area around the Nyanza region.
Not Nyanza region.
And the East African region, actually, the East African region, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and crossing over into the other areas. This is what we were saying, we have the opportunity. And when we start doing some of these projects, this is what we are looking at. Phone lines are open. Paul is calling in from Mombasa, but let me first of all pick Ali. Ali is in Mombasa as well. Good morning, Ali.
Good morning to you. How are you?
Salam
Fine, thank
kabisa.
you.
Good morning.
Okay. Now, what I'm saying, we should not just start with leaders. The top bottom approach. We should start from the bottom top approach. Are we voters ready to elect leaders who are capable leaders? Because if we end up electing wrong leaders, then for the next 60 years, there's nothing we're going to achieve. So we should start with the voters themselves,
Right.
electing the correct leaders in the right places.
Right.
But if we keep on electing leaders based on how much they give us during the campaigns and everything, then even the next 1,000 years will be in the same position.
We will go nowhere. Thank you, Ali.
So it should start from the voters. They are good leaders, but they're not given a chance.
They're not given an
Okay.
opportunity to.
An opportunity to lead. Yes.
Paul, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Paul.
How are you guys?
We're
Fine, thank you.
I think I'll just start by building up on what Ali's saying.
Yeah.
I think we should just elect the good leaders are already there, but the problem is that what we have been what the community has already been taken to think, or the mindset has already been put like you need things right away.
Yeah.
And you see, like what I've had you've been discussing about the great governor of the great governor of Nairobi.
Yeah.
He is doing a good thing out of the norm, but the problem is it sustainable? I would like to call it ready to drink kind of leadership, because at the end of the day, it's I need this, I'm given immediately.
Now, yes.
But I think as a leader, what this guy is supposed to be doing, he has the ideas, he has the muscle, he has the power. What he should do is form a task force to leave a legacy and to leave continuity. You know, there should be something continuing, even after he leaves. You know, if Sonko leaves today, he leaves with all those goodies that he's been giving.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul.
Nairobi dies again. So, like the governor of Makueni, what he did, he stopped all the cartels and everything, and he said, I don't care whether I go home. And he's also giving to the common Mwananchi by making sure that their mangoes are bought, making sure that their milk is bought. But what he provides is, where do you take your mangoes after you plant them? Where do you take your milk?
Yeah.
So there is that continuity. I think that's a great leader, other than the Sonko style, where it's just today and you forget about it.
Paul, asante sana.
Thanks, Paul.
Grace, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
How have you been, guys?
Good.
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, great topics this morning.
Thank you.
Asante.
And I want to start with the Bible.
Yes.
When God said, "Upon your sweat you will eat," that is where we should not we should start from there.
Right.
You see, leaders are managers of resources, and we should manage them in a manner that we use it to enable everybody to get an opportunity to sweat and earn their own bread.
Yes.
This issue of giving people money is terrible.
It is.
Because it doesn't allow them to create their own. And the mindset, as Paul said, also needs to be changed.
Yes, in terms of expecting that handout regularly.
You see, if the leaders were to give the infrastructure, for example, when a road is tarmacked from here to there, we should ask this road, what merchandise will it be carrying to which market, so that these people earn their own money.
Their own money, exactly.
Yeah, so I think the African leaders may have the will, as you are saying, but unless you do it,
unless you actually do it, exactly. You can talk and have the will for as long as you want, but until you actually do it. And that's why I was saying, Mheshimiwa, that even if they come back after 3 years and do an audit of what they discussed, even if it is one thing, this is the one thing that we've been able to achieve, and we can see the results of that achievement, we would have, we would be, I think it would take people up a notch. People would be saying, oh yes, actually, it's beyond the talk and the will and the thinking. We actually have something being done. And it'll encourage people, exactly.
But you see, even in Kenya, we are a perfect example of doing wonderful papers, strategic, millennia, I don't know what called, and we just put it in the shelf and do our own thing.
Unfortunately.
We implement something different.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Grace.
To implement the implementation thing. Even if, as Nyeri is saying, even if it's one, let it be seen that you have done.
Yes.
Asante, Mheshimiwa.
And the Mwananchi, this fourth person here, they also have their own portion. They should stop asking for ready money and ask for things to do so that they have money all the time.
So they're able to afford it by themselves.
All the time, let them have their money all the time. And the leader will be the enabler, not the giver. Yeah.
Asante sana.
0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Also post your comment on Facebook, Spice FM KE, and on Twitter at Spice FM KE, and the hashtag is The Situation Room.
I think it also be very important at these meetings that we see that, keep mushrooming every now and then, and the festivals and ideas and conferences that take place, is to say that, look, we need to have an arm of implementation when it comes to these discussions, because we've established the fact that having the conversation is good, right? It's good to start thinking, because from thought then becomes words, and then words hopefully will then lead to actions. Since we've clearly passed the thought stage and we're actually talking about it, then I think it's necessary then to include the implementation talk in all of this, and to say, let's not just come and, wrap our heads and wrap our mouths around nice things to say, but actually be responsible when it comes to accountability, to actually having some of these things done. One of the things that was mentioned yesterday was the need to have the strengthening of a continental body like the AU, to make sure that the Africa that we want to see in the next 60 years is actually achievable, because this body then would hold such a vision, in its hands, and actually make sure that, it holds countries accountable, nations accountable, to make sure that such things are done. Unfortunately, the body that we have, in the way it is currently operating, it's not for the continent. Unfortunately, it's a mouthpiece for other nations, as we have seen, and I'm going to say that without any apology, because the African Union, as at its best, has not done what it was originally mandated to do. But yesterday it was interesting that they talked about the need to have the union be strong and vibrant.
Good word.
Yes.
They talked about the need.
Yeah,
the AU is a club.
The club of the
yes,
haves or have-nots.
It's a club of leaders. Now, I want to take us a little back. Why do people even seek public office? What is it that pulls them to it? The words that they utter are to help people. No leader who aspires for a political post ever says anything without referring to the people. The people are always central to their discussion. The people, correct? All right. So what is it about getting to that position of power where you now have, it's been delegated to you by your people, use whatever term you want, but you have it. What happens? What is it that changes? So what takes over? This person who clearly wanted to help his people, and the person whose values and focus has suddenly changed, because it's that change that we're discussing. Some people do a good job of actually being community movers. We see what they do. And people feel this person in a position of leadership would do a lot for us. The discussion is about what happens, because they don't.
Shifts.
It's the expectation of the people.
No.
It starts
No.
from that point.
No. The expectation of the people is not something you carry around like a little pouch.
They are the ones who actually create that expectation.
You tell people what you think they want to hear.
Now, can I tell you what I mean by the expectation of the people? That's what Mheshimiwa Grace was talking about. Ali was talking about the same thing. If people are coming here and what they expect from you is that handout, then that's what you're going to give it to them. That's what you're going to give them all the time, right?
That narrative is
it that handout that stops you from doing your job. Between the time where you came and promised people for the people, this is what I'm going to do.
It shifts your focus.
Give me this opportunity so that when I enter into government or enter into a position of lead, this is what I'll do. Then they say they'll even tell you, they'll even count for you 100 days.
The system even affords you with the means to fulfill your promises.
They've even given you the money to fulfill your promises. You don't have to go and look for it.
This so-called leader who's talking about coming to help the people, he's coming to help the people in the context of what the people expect. Not coming to build long-lasting legacy projects.
Eric,
people need ABCD. This is what I'm going to give them.
You've been to a political rally.
In fact, not even that. I've actually seen somebody who declares they want to run for political office, and the following day, there are people who camp at their home.
That's when that is when you control the narrative. Look,
people camp.
You can't go around blaming people when you've allowed them.
You've allowed them.
They want you to give them everything. They want you to.
But you've allowed them.
That's the thing. Why do we have an example of somebody who said no and said no categorically?
I'll give you 2 examples.
Only 2.
Said no.
I don't need 10. Eric.
You need one to show you that it can work.
If you steal a chicken, you are a thief. If you steal a cow, you are a thief. If you steal
100 million,
7 billion, you are still a thief.
So what's your point?
My point is, I don't need 10 examples to prove my point.
I also have very many examples of now there are people who are doing the contrary and they get re-elected all the time. You just given us the example of case of Nairobi. And how they become popular.
Sorry, carry on.
Yeah. So the phone lines are still open, 0719 600. That's 0719 600. The conversation continues as well on our social media handles, Spice FM KE on Facebook, and Spice FM KE is our Twitter handle, and the hashtag is The Situation Room. Of course, remember we are live streaming as well on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. This is Kenya's biggest conversation at 9 o'clock. Good morning.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
Okay, if you have plans to use the Eastern Bypass at Utawala to get to Mombasa Road, please don't, because it is a sincere and serious jam in both directions. So please, if you're thought to do that, do not. Man hours having been lost in Nairobi traffic today. Mombasa Road is unfortunately still a parking lot and nobody is moving anywhere in either direction. Langata Road also is at a standstill. The weather has a lot to do with it, but also the fact that there's some parts of the city that have been blocked off because of what we see at Community and leading towards the Milimani Law Courts today. And so that has been blocked off. Jogo Road, absolutely total madness. People don't know what time they're going to get to work today, as Thika Road is also a parking lot. So everywhere we see, nothing is actually moving. Here is what we see that you're going to have to sit it out today. Typical Monday morning, but today sprinkled with some rain and other drama. 0719012600. If anything, we can keep company. We'll do that.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Nyeri Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's 2 minutes after 9 o'clock. Good morning, and how are you doing? This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's pick up some phone lines. Open up the phone line, 0719-012-600. Kimani in Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine,
morning.
thank you.
Now, I wanted to make some contribution to the discussion today.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think we need to shift the discussion into a different tone because however we are putting it, the way we are holding the discourse here, how many Kenyans can hold such a discourse? Probably out of the 100% of the voters, it could be less than 30%.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these are the people who lead us dissuade into taking strategies, ideas, but tell them handouts is what works for them. So basically, from where we come or where we stand, how many people would you sit down and tell them Kisumu Port is going to work for them? Then they are hungry. They need 200 shillings.
Mm.
So probably the discussion should be, how well are we informing our Kenyans, educating them, changing their thought process, such that if we discuss about MPs not giving handouts, it is possible for them to explain to the Kenyans what they are going to be able to do. But right now, probably telling Kenyans 70% of them doing a highway is beneficial for them. They don't get it because they are hungry.
Mm. They're more focused on the immediate.
They are more focused on today, tomorrow, the day after.
In fact, if I were to give you an example, you give the example of Kisumu Port. Yes, they are rebuilding it, but even the work as we speak hasn't been completed, has it? The president was supposed to launch an opening. It didn't happen. But what is of interest is that before then, very many small-scale businesses and kiosks were brought down or were asked to move. Now, if you know Kisumu, you will know that the vast majority of people who do business do that sort of business. So if you're telling someone that the port is being rebuilt for their benefit and at the same time their livelihood is being taken away, how exactly do you expect them to understand that this port is going to be useful? Because for them, the revamping of the port coincides with their losing their business. So as far as they're concerned, the causal effect, they will see the port as their one instrument that has made them suffer economically.
Unless they do. Kimani is in Mombasa, and then Barasa is in Utawala, Nairobi. Good morning, Barasa.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Morning.
Salama
Fine,
kabisa.
I'm following the discussion, and I think we are allowing the leaders to force their values on us as opposed to us forcing them to follow the values that we as a society want. Because of their grabbing, you see, even when a truck full of fuel overturns, we see it as an opportunity for us to reach something and grab, because under normal circumstances, we have no access. So it continues that way to the extent that when they come to us for vote, we think it's our turn to eat what they've been grabbing from us, not understanding that it is an investment they are making, and during their term, what they'll want is to earn returns from the investment.
Right.
Yeah.
So there is need for us to have a different type of conversation. And I disagree with the previous caller. Wherever you go, every Kenyan knows exactly what type of leader they want. Every Kenyan knows.
They're more aware.
They want these changes. They are aware. The problem is when it comes to voting, what happens? How is it possible that somebody gave an interesting statistic in terms of literacy? When you compare West Pokot and Nairobi, West Pokot is supposed to be 25%. They have a professor for a governor.
Right. Yeah.
And Nairobi 75% literacy. They have
We have an undergraduate for a governor. Point made, Barasa. Asante sana. Makori is in Mombasa. Good morning, Makori.
No, morning to you guys.
Morning.
I'm a bit moved by the cash handout. Actually, I grew up from one of my pleasant. And my dad used to tell me about the MP who used to give them this stuff called cash and comes. Actually takes up one guy and then anaweza mpea hata mapati 20 jenga nyumba. It's a form of blinding, like you don't see what they go on and then take from you. You see?
Yeah.
So let me say, like the current situation you trying to discuss, like about the Nairobi governor Sonko, it might help one guy, but in the other hand, he has done graphs that are more even 4 million guys. Are you seeing it? It's just using one person to blind like a society.
Right. So the handouts don't work in this case.
Exactly, doesn't help at totally, because maybe he's even giving it to a certain selected guy. Getting it? Okay, let me ask, for example, if he gets to help someone, he must have had a communication that there is someone who has this issue from someone in the board of his own governance.
Well, or somewhere else.
Yeah, there's a bush for that. Actually, it doesn't work out. Then, for the interest of many politicians, as we talk, it's not real for the cash handout. Thank you, guys.
Asante sana, Makori. 0719-012-600 is the number to call for all the conversation that we keep having in the show. The conversation continues on social media, of course. Our social media handles, SpiceFMKE on Facebook, Twitter handle @SpiceFMKE, and our hashtag is The Situation. Remember, we live stream this show on Facebook, on YouTube, and on www.spicefm.co.ke. Now, we're also giving you updates on what's happening around the streets of Nairobi. The governor of Nairobi, of course, Mike Sonko, has been taken to the Milimani Law Courts from the EACC headquarters, where he spent the weekend since Friday. Now he's been taken there. We'll be telling you about the charges when he actually is presented before the court. We'll be reading out the 8 charges again that the DPP said he's going to be facing. It's 9 minutes after 9 o'clock. Good morning.
have never sounded so good.
My favorite songs of the 1980s.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
In Kenya's biggest conversation this morning. My name is Eric Latif. We have Nduoko, we have CT Muga. Of course, we've been discussing various matters from the state of the city of Nairobi to the state of Africa. Now let's talk about the state of our leadership.
You know, listen to our own conversation. It struck me that many Kenyans actually talk as though they are victims, powerless victims who have no say in what happens in their lives. Leaders more or less decide for them. It's like everything happens to them and they have no say. And this actually is not true. It's a contrived situation and it's a power dynamics play. You see, when someone knows that they have something that is required or is needed, even if it's every 10 years or 5 years, and it's called a vote, then it is the one instrument of power that they own, and they are going to very well ensure that they milk it to the core. And why? The whole morning we talked about handouts or no handouts, giving money or not giving money. The money isn't given because the politician likes these people. The money is given because it's a source of influence. It's supposed to be a conduit of influence. And that influence, two things. One, it's supposed to catapult someone to a position of authority where they actually have something that what we refer to as legitimate power, meaning you have an office, you have a title, and the constitution and the law supports it. Now, in many cases, legitimate power is actually referred to authorities like people who are in, say, the police force. And a symbol or of that usually is a uniform. You know, when someone wears a uniform,
right,
they represent a certain legitimate power. And that's why somebody wearing that uniform and has a cap can stop you and you will stop. Because they represent that. Now, legitimacy seems to confer additional power to many of our leaders. And this is something that I think when they enter that political realm of the Waheshimiwa, it occurs to them that there's no game bigger than this one in town. And instead of focusing on wanting to serve the people as they claimed, they now seek other means of understanding. They want prestige. They want a little honor. They want reputation. And then in this country, they want a lot of wealth.
And more.
Yes. And they want the trappings of it and they want it to be seen. Now, our parliamentarians are fortunate. You're given a grant to buy a house. You're given a grant, is it a soft loan to buy a car? All these things that are required. But the image that it acquires is over time, the Mheshimiwa stops being the person who's a servant of the people, but a master of the people. Now, so every time we have an electioneering, you have what you call, you see power at play, but it's actually coercive. On the one hand, you have goons who are threatening your life and doing all sorts of things. On the other hand, you're being coerced by being given promises mostly. And as a token of reality, honestly, you'll be given some meager amounts like 50 shillings or 100 shillings. Now, we had a speaker who actually called in and said that some of these things don't actually or really work because all they do is make promises. But the truth of the matter is, and that they assume that the public, when they vote, don't vote in for right people. They do. What we don't take into consideration is what happens when they acquire that particular position. And that position is one of power. Now, power has influence on the person on whom it's exercised and on the person who has it. Now, our political leaders and the discussions around it, this is a discussion about how this power that they have is actually used. What they do with it, what they expect to do with it, we know. But what they do with it and what they do with it to ensure that they continue staying in the same space that they're in.
Which is abusing the power.
I wish it were that simple. I wish it were that simple. Because our laws, unfortunately, don't allow them to maximize it to the full. What you see is an attempted abuse of power. Every once in a while they succeed. We've discussed the whole morning a case that we have in court. And one of the things that he's been accused of is abuse of power. This is very tricky. Proving that somebody actually abused at the power they have. That very term, it's two sides of the same coin. He could say he was simply using the powers that are given or are conferred to him by virtue of the legitimacy of his office to do things in a particular way. Whereas somebody who feels aggrieved by the exercise of that power may argue to the contrary. But it is a display of power in its various forms. That's what we see in the presidency. It's what we see with the MCAs. It's what we see with the senators. It's what we see with the ministers. It's what we see. When someone can actually allocate money to the building of a dam, pay out a good portion of it, no dam. You've all heard of Houdini, this man who was an escape artist of the greatest form. We've surpassed Houdini.
We're doing much better.
Infinitely better. It's a show that we should take on the road and show the world how it's done, how a dam can become a no dam, and yet the dam has been paid for.
And we don't give a damn.
And we don't give a damn, yes.
If you look at the structures of our governance, the ones that, of course, the power belongs to the people, right?
That is what the people keep being told.
Yeah, no, let's go with that. Power belongs to the people, and then the people delegate that power.
Our constitution, it's enshrined in our constitution.
And then we delegate that power to these elected leaders and institutions. So clearly, even those structures also have ways in which you actually also control and contain the way that person utilizes their power. And that's why the term abuse of power actually also comes in. And it's a charge that can be taken to court. You've abused your office. You were supposed to behave in a certain manner to protect public interest, but then you went beyond that, and that is abuse of office. So we already have that. So why is it that then we see leaders behaving like they do? Is it because that we have delegated more power in terms of not power in office, but power of prestige, power of elevating them in society? When you talk about leaders coming and for example, driving around, you've seen this. Very many leaders now drive around with those strobe lights, not necessarily having police escort, but they have these huge fuel guzzlers.
Right, because they assume there's some kind of attention that would be given.
And you let them pass. And this person is just an MP. This MP does not have, there's no part of law that says that this MP should actually enjoy privileged position on the roads.
Right.
They put those strobe lights and they do that. It's because of we, the people. You started by saying we behave as if we don't have...
I said we are victims.
We are victims, but we are victims, City.
You see, again, that is subject for discussion. There's something you call structural expression. Huh? This is what you've just said with these fellows. They have power, but it's become a structure because even the people who follow the leaders want to be like them. The goons who follow them, the people who work for them. The aspiration is not to serve. They've understood the words you use are this. The things you do when you get power is this. So they all want to be the Mheshimiwa. They will all want to have a big car, wear suits. That for them is the goal. And maybe have a lot of money, make money. That is the goal.
Doors opened.
The last consideration is
the people.
Now, this is where it is strange. Many of these individuals don't seem to understand that the very process of ensuring that you deliver on your promises is what will give you the very things you want, and it will last even longer. And then the very thing you'll have that you are not going to have, you'll have the gratitude of your people. It may not be immediate. If you are given towards legacy, you will have it. But more importantly, you will have the respect. Because
that respect comes at a very later stage.
No, look at it.
That's a problem with our society.
Look at an example. And if we're going to talk about societies, unless we're sticking right down to, Kenya within the continent, just the other day, there was an announcement that came out of the Obama Foundation and what then he's been able to do in terms of prolonging his legacy and what he wants to do for young people in the country. Now, people didn't think for a minute before they bought onto the idea and then actually did something in terms of applying their support to that. So with the Obama Foundation and what they want to do and what they want to build in downtown Chicago today and going on for the next 20 years and what they want to do for the youth of the city, the youth of the country, have people come from around the world and have a place where they can share ideas that then will be used later on in governments. That's something that people didn't even need to think about twice when it came to lending their support.
A different society.
This is why I was asking if you can use the example of a society, but look at an individual who didn't abuse his office. I'm just taking the example. Forget about the society. What he did as an individual. Didn't abuse his office. Didn't worked within the tenets and worked within the boundaries of what it is that he was supposed to do, there is a kind of support, there's a kind of respect that he will have that will go with him for the rest of his life.
It's okay.
Because of what he did. And that's what I'm saying. Why is it difficult for us then here as leaders? Do we forget or do we not understand what it is that CT has just said? That, you know what, if you do your job, there is a support that you will be given way beyond that will give you the very things that you are abusing that office to get in the first place.
Here's the thing about our society. Our society actually shunned and, laughed at and scorned when you don't actually take advantage of the position that we've given you.
Now, who
People
is that?
ask you, so really, you guys, we have elected you, we've put you there, and what are you doing? You're driving in this. This guy still drives in this small car. We have heard cases like that. We've had cases where, for example, like the senator for Muranga, he talks about, the senator for Muranga, Irongo Kangata. He drives around still in a small car. He donates a lot of his money to the community, and people like.
Has he stopped? Has he stopped?
I suspect that.
Has he stopped and bought a bigger car? Has he stopped donating his money and has he bought a bigger vehicle?
I suspect that the people around him are the ones who've got it wrong.
I suspect that too. And I'm also asking because I think it's important to know.
There's a value system that has been inversed completely.
Now, has he bought a bigger car because people are laughing at him? Has he stopped donating his money because people are laughing at him and wondering what is wrong with him? And I dare say that if he continues in that trajectory, people might actually come around to see that what he's doing is what makes sense. By the time
they come around, they'll have voted him out.
I think he will not. He will not mind being out, if you ask me, because if you're supposed to be serving people whose entire value system is based on an accumulation of material things, and that is by which you are judged.
And that is that which they used to judge you.
That is the yardstick, the acquisition and accumulation of it. Then, and he seems to think he's the complete opposite. And even in that community, I don't know of any community where poor people are less than the rich. Most communities, poor people are more. Okay? And in a third world banana republic like ours, the likelihood of there being poor people is even greater. We may be in the 21st century, but a lot of the things we do are still embedded deeply in the 19th and 20th century.
The point I'm making is
behavior.
The way these leaders behave is because that's what we expect them to behave. It's because we have made them behave this way.
But are we saying that when you go to vote, you don't expect that your leader is actually going to get into office and do something different? The majority of Kenyans, for example, don't expect that the leader will go in and not pilfer, that the leader will go in and actually do that which you've mandated them to do by position of that office.
Is he going to over-exercise his power? Because the
and use his power in the way. So when people go to vote, you expect your leader to go and steal.
Big display of power. For him to
do you expect your leader to go and steal when you go to vote?
No, you actually don't expect him to steal. You expect him to do some things, but at the same time, you expect him to demonstrate that you have, given him that position. Demonstrate that by
that's actually quite sad.
He needs to have a big home.
That's actually quite sad.
What Eric is saying,
he needs to be flying home with a helicopter.
It's exactly true.
It's true and sad.
But it's one half of the story.
What's the other half?
The other half is that the leadership created this persona and this image of themselves. So people bought into it. So now they are holding other would-be leaders hostage to this particular. Yes, saying,
even if they came in thinking the opposite, you kind of bring them into a way of doing things, as it were, and then you expect them to dance to the band.
What is required, you see, is that you need enough people to hold those positions of power and to abuse it as they do, people to realize, perhaps these values are not what they ought to be. And I believe they are getting there, because every once in a while, and I said, you don't need 10 examples, you need one. When someone is elected and they have nothing, there are no material gains, and yet people elect them. Yes.
So it's something that keeps happening all the time, So we're discussing power and how people are abusing power. As we speak about that, we also keep updating you on what's happening at the Milimani Law Courts, where Governor Mike Sonko and his co-accused have appeared in court. They're already in court. We'll be seeing if we can link up to that link from KTN News shortly, just to hear when the governor maybe takes a plea. But before that, what we have is that he's in court and his co-accused as well are in court. The lawyers, a battery of lawyers are there. So, that process has started. So about leaders, again, coming back to the leaders and how they behave, and you're saying there are two halves,
Why I'm saying there are halves, again, you see, this is a case where both are victims. You see, there's a point in time when the leaders actually decided that they were not earning enough money to be able to charge their duties, simply, or rather to take charge of their duties. So what they did then do was they ensured that they asked for salary raises. It began with, let's be paid a little more money, all right? Now, and then the more money came into more money. Then something came up. It was called CDF. Because the complaint was, we are called for a ramble. Not even personal, but they have problems. And these problems people come with are actually genuine. They are real, okay? They're not imagined. And in that respect, the leaders didn't show the way forward and say, folks, I can't keep giving money, but why don't we try and find a way of doing this? But they didn't need to, because people tend to find these solutions themselves. This self-help, table banking, these people have
all things
they
came
have
through.
these things in the communities. But something perhaps a little more rational before the universal health came up would have been to simply get people to understand that you can actually get an NHIF card, which at that time you didn't need to pay much for, and the services were enhanced. But when leadership is about image, well, this is what it has evolved to, because you have CDF, you now have county money, you have national money. So if you're talking about things that can happen for the Mwananchi, believe me, there's enough money to at least do things that will change people's lives. But lives don't change, and they haven't changed. But so where do you turn to? With the evolution, you turn to the person who is supposed to represent this change, your MP. And you place the burden on him. Now, if he shows the willingness to play the game according to your rules, and that's why I was saying you agree, then you will suffer for it.
Yes, because they will keep coming back,
Yes.
and it becomes cyclical, and
that-
people will
yes.
say it must continue this way.
If you say no, the likelihood is that you will not be voted again. But my experience has been people who have actually attempted to do anything and have then not been voted back, it's not long before the people say, we made a mistake. we should have. At least they start telling you, there's so and so. And then come the election, somebody comes with more money, the narrative changes. They go for the person with the more money. So again, it's a narrative that took root, and money seemed to be at the center of it.
all.
But we still have examples.
So
as I
who's
was
the
saying.
victim?
Oh, they're both victims. You're a victim if you get elected because you'll be held hostage by the voting populace. The voter is also a victim because he has been led to a position where he's now a dependent.
Yeah.
And he more or less stops thinking for himself except to exercise the thought of going to this Mheshimiwa. So in a sense, they're both victims.
Who has the power to take away this power then?
The person who has the power is actually the leader.
The leader?
The leader has the power. Because when you have power of the sort, we call it legitimate, okay? But the moment you have legitimate power, it means you can exercise it for good or for evil, if I speak broadly. You actually have the power. And you also have the means within you to influence. Now, the influence comes in something like, say, CDF, when you provide bursaries and you provide all sorts of things. You have the power. The issue of change. Within that CDF, there's little money for little development. That's change. But the real change is in people's minds for them to understand that you are a conduit, but if they galvanize their energies together, they can do a lot more. Long before the CDF, this story I have to tell. I was in a place called Bamba in Kilifi.
Safari ya Bamba.
Ni Machero. It's a very remote part of the country. And I came across something that baffled me. I'd been driving through the rough terrain. I had a lorry business then. And I came across this road, which was smooth. I mean smooth.
After rough terrain.
In the middle of what you'd call nowhere. And so I asked, at this road, I was told the locals built it. I said, locals? I said, yes. I said, one of our sons studied engineering, and he came back and started organizing people. I said, so the government said, no. We got the Ministry of Works, Roads and Works, to just pave part of this, but we did most of this ourselves. We got and I thought, goodness.
Wow.
And how long was that road?
That I drove for something like around 6 kilometers on it. Then I had to go inland again. Yes. There are other projects in other places that I have seen where the MP is called. There was a place in Share Country called Game. Many years ago, I visited a water project. They actually had a spring, genuine spring. You actually saw the water, but they required electricity. The gentleman who brought about this project actually went and saw the people in power. He got power so that the water could be pumped up. they started selling bottled water. I'm talking about almost 20 years ago, not 2-3 years ago.
Yes, right.
Okay, almost 20 years ago. They had bottled water. And I saw the spring.
Proper mineral water.
Then he took it further. Because his background was medicine, he decided not to build a clinic, he built a hospital. But the community supported him. But he brought his friends, people he knew within the medical fraternity, and they built the hospital. It's not a very big hospital, but it has literally every facility that you can think of.
Yeah.
And then he had community projects like ensuring people got bursaries. Before CDF, a community place for leaders. And he didn't do it alone. He'd bring in other people from his community to do this. I saw it. I have to mention this gentleman. He's called Kamarogo, Professor actually.
Professor Kamarogo.
I actually thought the man was actually going to go into politics. He never did. I even asked him once, are you going to go into politics? He said no. He actually just wanted to see things done. I'm giving examples of those I know. I'm sure around this country there are many people like that who have done things. Others have gone into politics, and where the problem arises is that they change.
Of course. People like you convince them to go into politics. And then they become victims of that whole system. It's 9:30. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We'll also be updating you on what's happening at the Milimani Law Courts. Good morning.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Traffic. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, unfortunately, it's been a crazy morning today when it comes to traffic around the city, from Kasarani to Jogo Road to Mombasa Road, Thika Road. Everywhere you look, it has been crazy. Juja Road, everybody's being asked to avoid everywhere. So I guess it should have been one of the days where you said you should have stayed at home today, unfortunately. And it doesn't help because it is raining, and in some areas it is pouring cats and dogs. All right, Eastern Bypass. The police have actually come there to try and sort out, but it's actually quite crazy today as people were using that as an alternate route. But now the alternate route is chock-a-blocked. All right, guys, I know several man-hours have been lost in traffic this morning, but you'll be able to make for it as we go on. Hopefully the rain will subside and then we can get people moving a lot quicker. But for now, where you have a standstill, just be patient. It will open up eventually. Getting into the city center probably is not such a good idea right now, but let's see what it looks like later. But for now, you're gonna have to sit tight and see how things change as the minutes tick by. 0719-012-600 is the number to call if you find an alternate from the alternate from the alternate.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
28 minutes to 10 o'clock. The Nairobi governor has been arraigned in court together with some city county officials, of course, and some directors of some companies to face charges of what the DPP called abuse of office, corruption, and also money laundering. We'll keep you updated on that as he takes plea and all. So now he's just appeared in court. The lawyers are there, the battery of lawyers for the governor and for the other officials. And of course, that's ongoing. We'll tell you when he takes a plea or what they say in court as we continue this conversation. So yes, City, we're talking about leaders. So there are people who are leaders. And they don't get to that point where the delegated power is given to them and they're elected into office, but they're just community leaders. And then there are those people who are leaders, and then they're given that power by the people to go and represent them and to act, to serve either as executive or in the legislature. And then those ones, some of them work well, others abuse their privilege.
It's an interesting confluence, because many people begin as they have what you call expert power, which is what they exercise, meaning they're experts in a particular field or a discipline, they've studied it, and people have seen the benefits of this.
Right.
Okay? Now, they move this person from this particular position of influence where they've actually studied to be in and they're good at, and they're probably called professor, they're probably called doctor, or they're expert XYZ, and you now want to confer to them something that is a little more powerful, a little more volatile, a little more mobile, that is called political power. Now, when they get to political power, whatever they learnt, or whatever they had, or whatever power they had based on the expertise, they will find insufficient. Because this position they're going to find themselves in, nothing will have prepared them for this particular position. Now, unless they have a very versatile mind, but the problem with any such power is that it gives you a fixed mind. You want to approach
things from the same.
Well, it's worked for you. And human beings rarely change. When something is working, you never try to invent it. You just continue in the same way. How do you think cultures form? Because it's a way of life that people have found to be working. And so they don't see any reason why they should change. And when you bring change, you bring in the sort of opposition that, well, let's put it this way, that in many cases will surprise you. However, when you have this sort of power, you have something else with you. The power to attract people. Because people associate positions of learning with a certain honor, with a certain straightforwardness, with a certain truthful. You are given associative qualities. You may have none of them. Now, one of the things that a political position will do for you, it will expose the absence or the presence of all these things that people assumed. And usually they'll come up with stock phrases to explain and say, you know, when people are too educated, something goes wrong with their heads. They don't seem to function well. It isn't that. It's just that their socialization, their understanding and what they can do and on how they want to do it, in the arena that they then find themselves in, it doesn't usually work that way. Actually, to be a politician, to be successful, you have to relearn many things.
Many things.
And you have to, it's like you more or less have to throw yourself into the deep end. Talking of the governor will plead not guilty, that is for sure. He's not going to stand up in court and suddenly tell people he's guilty. He will not.
He will not.
Yes. The issue is not his pleading, what he'll plead. The issue is whether he'll be allowed to get bail and how much bail he'll get. I believe he will be given bail. But now the question is, how much? That will be the question. Anyway, I digress. Remember that when you talk about politicians, the power that is entrusted to them or someone in a position of authority is vast. And part of it is because when people vote for you or when you have a position of leadership over people, there's an element of expectation. And because of this, people will want to trust you. They will want to expect. And until you prove to them consistently that none of these things are true, they'll continue hoping. And when we change our politicians, it's because we're hoping that with this change, something different will come along. And usually it does, but not quite in the form that we expected.
How? Because then I think then we're burdened with the question then, because we begin to ask ourselves, if this is what we see as cyclical, then when is this going to change? How then are we going to put people in power that we would be sure that they would carry the mantle or carry the church or carry the torch then for change and to make, when we say change, not of themselves to become who we don't expect them to, but to actually do what is required of them. Because we cannot continue to have examples of just one or two people who've been able to stand out.
Actually, it isn't one or two. I mentioned the two because they're the obvious ones, but there are other leaders who've come along, who've actually who've stood very good, who've done well by their people, really.
Right.
You only need to sit and pause. I mean, I can think of two others off the top of my head. I can think of a certain gentleman who unseated the Dr. Mukisa Kitui. It's called Dr. Eseli Simiyu, two-term MP. The sort of guy who walks his talk. I can think of somebody in a place called Semes, called Dr. Nikal. He also walks his talk. I can think of a governor, for instance, in Meru, Governor Kiraitu. All I'm saying is that you do have leaders who actually do what they're supposed to do. Why I mentioned them, the others who are obvious. Like there's Kimemia, who does a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Okay? There's a governor of Laikipia who came here, who's clearly, forget the talk, he clearly does what he says he's going to do. We have the governor of Makueni. I mean, I'm not saying, there's no shortage of example. The problem are not these few. The problem is that you have Oparanya, his report is excellent, but then you have the others.
Because all it takes is one bad apple to spoil
Yeah,
the bunch.
unfortunately, these apples
But
are
at the
more.
same-
And
at
there
the
are
same
more,
time,
more
CT,
bad apples
Yes.
than
There's-
you would like.
There's also the issue of, people getting into power, people getting corrupted by that power, and then people abusing that power, and suddenly that power just moves.
Eric, you're completely right.
It
see,
goes.
the two,
One day you are powerful, the next day
You're
you
powerless.
are not powerful.
Actually,
The next day you're being paraded in court, like we are seeing now. It's happening live now with the governor of Nairobi, and in fact he's being when he's being called there with so many aliases, Gideon Mbuvi Sonko, alias Sonko Gideon Mbuvi, alias Gideon Sonko.
no, they're painting.
Alias,
no,
Of
that
course,
is-
obviously, they're
You're
they're crafting something around
Yes,
what
you-
they want people
Alias
to
so
see
and
him
so.
as.
You're beginning by showing that this is an unreliable fellow.
Yeah, if we
I
can't
mean,
even
how
get what
many
his
aliases
name
is the
is.
governor?
Yes.
And
It's
there
a-
he was. One moment he was so powerful. The next moment he's there.
Eric,
trying
do you
to
know
paint
why?
him.
Do you know why I've gone to this length of trying to explain these issues surrounding power? Is because the assumption that it belongs to you is usually the assumption that people in power have, and that actually is the totally erroneous understanding of power. Power doesn't actually belong to anybody.
anyone.
It's conferred upon you. And to understand power, you perhaps need to understand civilizations, right? Let me talk of a civilization that is current, that has declined, and people are still holding on to the view that it hasn't. America. The American civilization has declined. Not is declining, has declined. It has, and that it's been declining for the longest of time, but has declined. I could argue that the greatest sign of its decline is in the election of the leader they have. He may be good for their people, but if your understanding of the world and has been positioned by you being at the top of it, then you must have a leader who is representative of that particular perspective. If the leader isn't representative, then the very, very thought that you yourself are at the top of the so-called world becomes an erroneous perspective. If you think of any civilization in the world, the civilizations of the world with time actually became to, let me say, they exemplified the powers even of the leaders who are in charge of those civilizations. And there is no civilization that has been in existence that has never come to an end.
So, what are we saying? That at some point, the way in which we know it or see it,
It will come to an end.
Come to an end.
There's a Latin phrase that encapsulates it very well. Oh, you're waiting for me to tell you
Yes.
what the Latin phrase is?
Go on.
Sic transit gloria mundi. Sic is S-I-C. Sic transit gloria mundi. So passes the glory of this world. Everything that we're looking at, what we're calling, they are what you call the trappings of power. Now, the trappings of power is what gives the illusion of reality, and that's what people who hold on to it and hold on to that illusion, because the one thing it certainly does, the one thing it does, and it does very, very, very well. Psychologists have proved. There's one particular psychological thinker. It's called Adams Galinsky, and he said that the more power one has, the less likely he is able to empathize with others or with the interests of others.
Or to understand or even then operate within those interests upon which, people have called
Yes,
you to.
just others, not
Just others, yeah.
not less fortunate, just others. Now, if you look at leaders who've been in position of that and who've had that sort of power, and you look at some of the absolutely crazy things that they do, from a gentleman who was in Central African Republic, a real, genuine poor country, conferring himself the title of emperor, to others who, after a little while, confer themselves the title of life presidents. Now, that is the negative effects of power. Somebody gets it until they lose perspective completely. The leaders we speak of just lose it in small doses, but they lose it, and their actions tell us completely that they've lost the perspective. And what has? They've been inflicted by power.
Those that lose it.
Some lose it completely. And if you look at our power structure right now, it's not difficult to find individuals who've actually lost that power. You've heard of the term megalomania, haven't you? When someone speaks and utters, again, so it's a godlike complex, where they speak as though when they say something, it is so. And when they say it, you shouldn't doubt it. And if you doubt it, there's something wrong with you. Even when it is clear that you can't see it. It's the emperor's clothes again.
Right.
It is the manifestation of it. And unfortunately, Our country has enabled people who get into political positions or even strong positions of government to believe that they're invincible because impunity has not been checked, it hasn't been punished. And so we've also come to believe that it will never be punished and nothing will be done about it.
Oh, and that is the case. I mean, that's what a lot of people do.
That
is what the general sentiment is.
Yes.
So the case in court has begun. The governor of Nairobi, Mike Mbuvi Sonko, has appeared in court. Then he has a battery of lawyers who've just introduced themselves. 12 lawyers in total representing the governor, led by lawyer Cecil Miller, assisted by Senator Kipchumba Murkomen, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., George Kithi, MP Dan Maanzo, Nelson Havi, Kwaya Mboya, Alphonse Mutinda, Osundwa Harrison Kenyanjui, Mangolo, and Philip Kaindu. 12 lawyers representing the governor of Nairobi. 12 of them have just presented themselves in court. Of course, we're going to see
who's
whether
taking the lead.
Cecil Miller is actually taking the lead. He's the one who's taking the lead in this. So we'll see what the charges actually. He is actually the counts that he's given in court. We're going to hear them. Of course, the DPP said they have 8 different charges that they're going to be preferring on him. 8 of them, including abuse of office, acquisition of property fraudulently, also money laundering. All of them. It's 9:45. We're going to be giving you an update on that as well.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice Up and Right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting from Nairobi around the world on www.spicefm.co.ke. Also on Twitter, our hashtag is #The Situation Room, and our Twitter handle is SpiceFMKE. We're live streaming as well on Facebook, SpiceFMKE. We're talking about powers, the fleeting nature of power.
Actually, if you want to understand it, you need to look at probably the fleeting nature of life.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're alive and doing well, you actually forget your mortality. And to understand it, you have to look at how much effort people put into trying to live as long as you possibly can and to be as youthful as you possibly can. Now, someone who is actually not that position will not necessarily be fatalistic and want to die, but their efforts are usually charged and geared towards just ensuring that you survive the day.
Well, even looking at what's happening right now, when you're talking about power and how you then be able to expend it, and see what's happening now with the governor of Nairobi, he never thought he would. I mean, you could clearly see that he never thought he would be in a place whereby the powers that he was wielding at one point would be removed from him. You know, in terms of what then he would be able to do, and how then he would be able to. Because now in this case, it would seem that he's completely powerless compared to where he was before, and how then he would be able to do it. It's been said that power is lost or won, never created or destroyed. Power is a visitor to, not a possession of, those it empowers. The mad tend to crave it, many of the sane crave it, but the wise worry about its long-term side effects. Power is crack cocaine for your ego and battery acid for your soul. Power's comings and goings from host to host via war, marriage, ballot box, diktat, and accident of birth are the plot of history. The empowered may serve justice, remodel the earth, transform lush nations into smoking battlefields, and bring down skyscrapers. But power itself is amoral. Not immoral, but amoral. So, I mean, it's coming and going and not really sure what it does for you, or actually we're sure what it does for what you should do, but not how it corrodes your soul is something totally different in terms of how you treat it.
If you look at the decline of power, one of the things that usually the center of it is antagonism. People give many reasons. Epidemics have wiped out civilizations, corruption has wiped out civilization, population growth, warfare, but antagonism. If there is an antagonistic position when it comes to just the process of thought and the putting into practice of it, that power structure can go down. I'm going to explain what I mean. For the longest time, we had something called the Cold War. There was antagonism, but it was more philosophical. It manifested itself realistically, but it was East versus West. That was the general idea, but that was antagonism.
Right.
Now, with time, the one that seems to have won over is the one that gave a lot of its time and voice to allowing people what you would call individual freedoms. Nothing more. They didn't offer wealth. They didn't offer just individual freedoms. Now, it's like they got to the heart of what human beings crave. Individual freedoms. Now, you wonder why sometimes countries that, in your opinion, are not well run, but people seem to be okay. Usually it's because there's certain freedoms are not interfered with. In their minds, they can more or less do what they want. They can do the things that make them happy within the law. Okay, but when power gets to the point where the application of it is repressive, then what it then means that power structure, the person who embodies, they're actually on their way down. They just don't know it. But they have started.
And you can see the physical representation of that when now people begin to, because people might be wondering, how does that happen? When people begin to speak up against you, when people then take what they would have normally taken as, book, Bible, and law, then becomes something they say, they begin to question that. And that's how you can then see that power fleeting. And we saw this a couple of weeks ago when we saw, members of different, members of parliament, members of the Senate who got up and said, look, this is not, because we see Nairobi going to the dogs. And it is clear that the power that has been wielded is not the kind that we want to see in terms of enforcement and making sure the city goes in the way it was going. And you see that kind of dissent. So then you can also now translate that to the loss of power or power leaving the hands of one said leader.
To be very
and it
honest.
goes. In this particular
and
case,
it goes.
for example,
in this case, it has gone.
once he takes a plea in court, like look at the example of their father in Kiambu. So their father took a plea in court. Do you see him in public fora anymore? You don't see him actually.
The power is
the
gone.
kind of power that he was wielding, you don't feel it anymore. So, and we've even seen people who've moved from one position of power. They were, in an elected position. They were used to enjoying the trappings of power. Once they're out of it, they completely degenerate. They become totally confused. They don't know how to relate to the people because they were used to, when I am entering a certain place, people will even create room for me. They'll let me pass. They'll allow me to sit. I'll be served first. And now you're coming in and people are just looking at you like, this is
just another one of us.
This is the guy who used to be. In fact, they look at you like, this is the guy who used to be. Right? He's a former. It completely finishes you as well.
If you just take the simple understanding of power as having influence over others, look at something that you can relate to, perhaps. Look at athletes, sports people. You will have influence so long as at the top of your game. But even as you're at the top of your game, other people who can do what you do and even better keep coming up. And the reason why sports continues to draw the people it does is because of that. It's actually open competition. The best are actually allowed to thrive. Literally allowed to thrive. Now, so people get better and better. World records keep getting broken. But in the politics that we have in this country, where impunity seems to be king, even when somebody genuinely has a popular mandate, these are the factors creep in. That person's start is actually the beginning of his end. Because they will function with impunity, and it's that very impunity. You assume it lasts forever. In this same talk show, I've said it never does.
It doesn't.
And the day it does, yes, the day it comes to land on your head, you will wonder what hit you. It does. Believe me, it does come to an end. It doesn't matter who you are. We're what? We're on our fourth president?
Yes.
Yes. One passed away. One is in retirement. The next one is in retirement. The fourth one. So long as they were in power, they have influence, yes. But what they don't have is the same sort of power they
had previously.
Yes.
It goes.
It goes.
And in fact, for them, you can even say that, because they are former presidents, they still enjoy some trappings of power. Imagine those that get voted out, or those that get kicked out for one particular reason or the other. Those ones completely lose it.
It's not difficult for you
We saw the other day photos going around on social media of a certain particular gentleman who was serving in the city of Nairobi on a border. And what was the image being portrayed there? Like, really, you've actually come down to that level.
To this level whereby...
Of course, he hasn't come down to that level.
The worst example of this was given by the life of a certain gentleman, Mbithi, who was head of the public service, who, as stories go, had been to see the president at the time, and on his return to his office, was met with the sad news that he himself had lost
his job.
Yeah. He never seemed to have recovered from that at all. Power gives you a certain understanding of life that is only real so long as you have it.
And with the understanding of that power, then probably should come the understanding that it would change in its nature. And then you would think, assuming that these are thinking up human beings, you would think then with that understanding that people then would then wield it differently.
No,
understanding,
no. If you
understanding that at some point, just as you have said, the only sure thing about it is that it will come to an end.
Impunity
so
doesn't
then
allow
understanding that you would then want to use it well.
To the betterment of your people.
Yes.
Impunity removes that process from the equation.
We saw an example, a story written on Friday of the former AG, Professor Gedho Muigai. And that's what he was talking about. He was asked, did you get power get to your head? And he was like, one of the things that I made sure I do not do in my position as AG is to assume that this is going to last. But of course you'll feel it. Of course you'll feel it when you're no longer the AG and people are not opening doors for you. They're not three different people carrying your bags. And the car is not waiting at the steps when you step out of the office. When you're going into a restaurant, there's no person who's actually pulling the chair for you. You get used to that. And this is how power corrupts. And he was like, well, the problem we have with very many of our public servants is they actually forget that this thing, you have it for a short time.
It's fleeting and it's going to end. But unfortunately, and understanding the corruptible power of absolute power, so understanding that, look, this could actually change me and this will come to an end. So I think going in and understanding it is absolutely unconsidered when it comes to a lot of the leaders that we see. Because then having to deal with the shock, and you would see that the loss of power affects them much more than it affects anybody else. Because then the positions and the influence that they would then wield, then it leaves them automatically once the position of power is taken away for whatever reason.
See, if you consider structures that enables one to be a little realistic, again, the good example is the Western world, where they treat their policemen, their teachers well. So you'll find you could be a police officer, but you live next to a minister.
Yes.
So
you're all riding the train together.
You have a job.
It's a job.
It's a job. You ride the train together, and so someone could stop being a minister and become something else, and they move back into society.
Transition is fine.
Exactly. You have countries where you find the prime minister walking in the street without bodyguards.
Yep.
Well, there's one country that has tried that and they've had two of their prime ministers shot for the effort. But I'm not referring to those particular examples. I'm simply saying that a politician's job is seen as a job. A minister's job is seen as a job. Ours, with impunity, it isn't a job.
It's a lordship.
Thank you.
You rise to a certain level where
you are not an ordinary human being. And what we're saying is akin to worship. They expect to be worshipped. And when you go to worship them, then they bequeath on you the 50 bob.
Yes.
That is your thanks for the worship.
For the worship that you have accorded to them.
But that has been possible because of we enshrined impunity. The case we now have in court is trying to normalize and show us that impunity doesn't pay. But I'm going to play a wait-and-see game.
Is one of those.
I'm going to play a wait-and-see.
So the case that City Muga is talking about is the governor of Nairobi, Mike Mbuvi Sonko, plus other county officials and directors of some companies have been arraigned in court this morning. They're actually still in court at the Milimani Law Courts in Nairobi, facing 8 charges: conspiracy to commit an offence of corruption, willful failure to comply with law, a conflict of interest contrary to Section 42 of the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, abuse of office, unlawful acquisition of public property, deceiving principle contrary to Section 41 of the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, that's money laundering and acquisition of proceeds of crime. All those 8 charges are what Governor Sonko is facing. He has paraded his 12 lawyers in court, led by lawyer Cecil Miller, assisted by lawyers like Senator Kipchumba Murkomen and Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. and MP Daniel Manzo. And
the other lawyers, 12 of them. Of course, we'll wait and see what happens. We talked about this earlier, that now what happens? What's the fate of Nairobi going forward? Does he now have no access to his office? Now, without a deputy governor, what happens? Does the Speaker Beatrice Elachi take over? If Speaker Beatrice Elachi takes over, do we have an election within 60 days? That is, by end of January, we'll have an election for a new governor of Nairobi? Or should we just say that we break the entire government and elect